I stood in my childhood home's doorway 6 years after my cousin Madison's wedding, watching my mother sob uncontrollably while clutching a manila envelope. The same woman who had slapped me across the face at that wedding reception, who had screamed that I was dead to her, now begged for forgiveness. But the DNA test results in her trembling hands couldn't erase 6 years of being erased from every family photo, every holiday, every memory. They all knew the truth now, but I wasn't sure I cared anymore. Looking back, I should have seen the cracks in our family's foundation before everything shattered that night in June. But when you're 28 years old and surrounded by the warmth of people who've loved you since birth, you don't look for shadows in the sunshine. My name is Estelle, and I grew up in the kind of family everyone envies. We lived within a 5-mile radius of each other in Oakwood, Connecticut, gathering every Sunday at my grandmother Ruth's colonial house for dinner. The kitchen would smell like her famous pot roast, and laughter would echo through rooms filled with decades of photographs, documenting every milestone, every celebration, every ordinary moment made extraordinary by being together. I was the oldest grandchild, the one who helped change Madison's diapers when she was born 10 years after me. I taught her to ride a bike in Ruth's driveway, tutored her through high school algebra, and held her hand through her first heartbreak. She called me her sister more than her cousin, and I wore that title proudly. My nursing degree hung on grandmother Ruth's wall right next to my father's law degree and my mother's teaching certificate. Ruth had insisted on helping pay for my education, slipping checks into my textbooks with notes that read, "Invest in your dreams, sweet girl." She'd survived the Depression, built a successful bakery from nothing, and taught us all that family meant everything. My younger brothers David and Christopher were the jokesters who kept us laughing. David worked as a firefighter, always the hero, while Christopher taught middle school history and coached basketball. We had our squabbles, sure, but nothing that Sunday dinner at Ruth's couldn't fix. Then there was Marcus, my fiancé of 3 years. He'd proposed at the same spot where we'd had our first date, a small Italian restaurant downtown. We were planning a September wedding, nothing fancy, just family and close friends in Ruth's backyard. Madison had already claimed maid of honor duties, threatening anyone who might challenge her for the position. Madison's engagement to Bradley had sent the family into overdrive with excitement. She was 18 years younger than me, but had always been an old soul. Bradley came from money, lots of it, and worked at his father's investment firm. Not my type, honestly. Something about his smile never quite reached his eyes, and he had this way of touching Madison possessively that made my nurse instincts twitch. But Madison glowed around him, and that was enough for everyone. The wedding planning consumed our Sunday dinners. Madison wanted everything perfect, from the orchid centerpieces to the 7-tier cake. Her maid of honor, Jessica, haunted our family gatherings with fabric swatches and vendor catalogs. Jessica and Madison had been best friends since college, one of those intense friendships where they finished each other's sentences and shared everything. 2 nights before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. Maybe it was the excitement, or maybe it was the 3 cups of coffee I'd had during my 12-hour shift at the hospital. I decided to take a drive to clear my head, maybe grab some tea from the 24-hour diner near the Hilton where the wedding party was staying. That's when I saw them. Bradley's silver Mercedes was parked in the back corner of the hotel parking lot, partially hidden behind a delivery truck. I almost didn't notice it, but the personalized license plate Brad01 was hard to miss. I pulled into a spot, thinking maybe he was picking up some last-minute wedding supplies or meeting with groomsmen. The person who stepped out of his car wasn't a groomsman. Jessica emerged from the passenger side, adjusting her dress, her lipstick smeared. Bradley grabbed her waist, pulling her against him for a kiss that was definitely not appropriate for a groom 48 hours before his wedding. They were laughing, his hands in her hair, her arms around his neck. My stomach dropped to my knees. I sat frozen in my car, watching them disappear into the hotel together, his hand on the small of her back, the same hand that would slip a ring onto my baby cousin's finger in 2 days. The morning of Madison's wedding dawned perfect, one of those June days that made Connecticut look like a postcard. I'd barely slept, replaying the hotel scene over and over. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jessica's smeared lipstick and Bradley's wandering hands. I arrived at the Riverside Country Club early, my bridesmaid dress hanging in its garment bag like a costume for a play I no longer wanted to perform in. The bridal suite buzzed with activity. Hairstylists wielded curling irons like weapons, makeup artists painted faces with a military precision, and champagne flutes appeared and disappeared with alarming frequency. Madison sat in the center of it all, radiant in her silk robe, bride embroidered across the back in pink script. When she saw me, her face lit up. Estelle, finally, I was worried you'd be late. You know how Jessica gets when the schedule's off? Jessica. There she was, clipboard in hand, barking orders at the photographer like she hadn't been in a hotel room with the groom 2 nights ago. She caught my eye and smiled, all teeth and false warmth. Estelle, sweetie, you're in chair 3. We're running 15 minutes behind, so let's hustle. I wanted to grab her by her perfectly styled hair and demand answers. Instead, I sat in chair 3 and let someone transform me into a vision in lavender while my conscience screamed. The morning flew by in a blur of preparation. Every time I tried to get Madison alone, Jessica appeared like a guard dog. She managed the schedule, the vendors, the family members who arrived early. She was everywhere, controlling everything, including access to the bride. As Madison stepped into her wedding dress, a stunning creation of lace and pearls that cost more than some people's cars, I made my decision. I couldn't let her walk down that aisle without knowing. But I also couldn't destroy her in front of everyone. I'd tell Bradley first, give him one chance to come clean himself. The opportunity came during the cocktail hour before the ceremony. The wedding party gathered for photos while guests mingled on the terrace. I spotted Bradley adjusting his cufflinks near the gazebo, temporarily alone. Bradley, we need to talk. His politician's smile faltered for just a second. Estelle, looking beautiful as always. Shouldn't you be with the other bridesmaids? Cut the crap. I saw you 2 nights ago with Jessica. The color drained from his face like water from a tub. His eyes darted around, checking for witnesses. I don't know what you think you saw, but I saw you kissing her in the hotel parking lot. I saw you go into the hotel together. Don't insult my intelligence by denying it. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You're mistaken. Jessica and I were discussing wedding details. Madison's been so stressed, and Jessica needed my input on some surprises. At midnight, with her lipstick all over your face. Listen carefully. His tone shifted harder now, threatening. Madison is about to have the perfect wedding she's dreamed about her whole life. Your family invested everything in this day. Are you really going to ruin it with baseless accusations? Baseless, Bradley. I know what I saw. You saw what you wanted to see. Everyone knows you've been jealous of Madison since she got engaged. Marcus told me how you've been acting weird about the wedding, complaining about the cost, the attention. Now you want to play the hero, save her from the bad man. Please. That's not true, and you know it. Do I, or maybe you're the one who's been inappropriate. The way you hugged me at the engagement party, how you always touch my arm when we talk. Madison's noticed, Estelle. We've discussed it. My mouth fell open. The gaslighting was so smooth, so practiced. Before I could respond, Jessica's voice cut through the air. Bradley, the photographer needs you. Oh, hi, Estelle. Everything okay here? She stood 10 feet away, close enough to have heard everything. A slight smirk played at the corner of her mouth. Everything's perfect, Bradley said, straightening his bow tie. Estelle was just wishing me luck. As they walked away together, Jessica glanced back at me with a look that chilled my blood. She knew that I knew, and she didn't care. The ceremony proceeded like a dream wrapped in a nightmare. I stood at the altar holding Madison's bouquet, watching her pledge her life to a man who'd already broken those vows. My smile felt painted on my hands, shook. During the vows, I caught Marcus's eye in the third row. He frowned at me, clearly sensing something wrong. The reception began with all the standard traditions. First dance, father-daughter dance speeches full of love and hope and promises of forever. I delivered my prepared remarks about growing up with Madison, watching her become the amazing woman who stood before us. The words tasted like ash. During dinner, I excused myself to use the restroom, needing a moment to breathe. The cocktail hour had moved inside, and the terrace stood empty in the twilight. I stepped outside, gulping the fresh air, trying to calm my racing heart. That's when I noticed my purse wasn't on my chair. I'd left it there during dinner, tucked under the table. Panic flared. My phone, wallet, car keys were all inside. I rushed back to the ballroom, scanning the floor around my seat. Looking for something, Jessica stood behind me, my purse in her hands. "Oh, thank God. I thought I'd lost it." "Can't be too careful," she said, handing it over with another of those cold smiles. "Lots of valuable things go missing at weddings. You should keep better track of your belongings." She glided away before I could respond, leaving me with the distinct feeling I'd just been threatened. I clutched my purse closer and returned to my seat, unaware that my life was about to implode in the next 20 minutes. The reception was in full swing when Madison's scream cut through the music like a blade. The band stopped mid-song. Conversations died, and 300 guests turned toward the head table, where Madison stood, her face white with panic. "My jewelry, it's gone." Chaos erupted. Madison's wedding set, a family heirloom worth $30,000, had vanished from the bridal suite. The pearl and diamond necklace, matching earrings, and bracelet had belonged to Bradley's grandmother, promised to Madison as a wedding gift. "I put them right here," Madison sobbed, pointing to the velvet box on the gift table. "Right here after the photos. They were supposed to stay safe until we left for the honeymoon." Bradley materialized at her side, wrapping his arms around her shaking shoulders. "It's okay, baby. We'll find them. Everyone just stay calm." But calm was impossible. The country club manager appeared, security was called, and staff began searching the bridal suite. Family members huddled in worried clusters, while Madison's tears carved channels through her perfect makeup. "This is insane," my mother said, fanning herself with a program. "Who would steal from a wedding?" Jessica stepped forward, ever the problem solver. "Maybe we should check if anyone saw anything suspicious, or..." She paused dramatically. "Maybe check people's belongings. I hate to suggest it, but with this many guests, including plus ones, we don't really know." "That's actually not a bad idea," Bradley agreed quickly. Too quickly. "Just to rule things out. I'm sure it's all a misunderstanding." What followed was the most humiliating 45 minutes of my life. Security guards and staff began systematically going through the bridal party's belongings first, then expanding to family members. Everyone submitted willingly, wanting to help, wanting to prove their innocence. I stood with the other bridesmaids as they searched our clutches and evening bags. Nothing. The tension in the room ratcheted higher with each empty search. "Has anyone checked the bigger purses?" Jessica suggested innocently. "Some of us brought regular bags to carry more stuff." That's when all eyes turned to me. I was the only bridesmaid who'd brought my regular purse, a brown leather tote that held my hospital pager in case of emergencies. "Of course," I said, handing it over to the security guard. "Check everything." He opened my purse, rifling through the contents. Wallet keys, pager, mints, tissues, lipstick. Then his hand stilled, his eyes widened. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step aside." Why?" He pulled his hand from my purse. Wrapped in a cloth napkin from the reception, partially hidden beneath my wallet, was Madison's jewelry. The silence that followed was deafening. 300 people stared at me, their expressions morphing from confusion to shock to disgust. Madison's sob broke the spell. "Estelle, no, this has to be a mistake." "It is a mistake," I gasped. "I didn't put those there. I would never..." "Then how did they get in your purse?" Bradley's voice carried across the room, calm and reasonable and devastating. You were the only one with access to it. Someone must have. Jessica had my purse earlier. Are you seriously trying to blame the maid of honor? My mother stepped forward, her face twisted with rage. Estelle Marie Winters, how dare you? How dare you steal from your own cousin on her wedding day? Mom, please, I didn't. The slap came without warning. My mother's hand connected with my cheek hard enough to snap my head sideways. The crack echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. You are not my daughter, she hissed. My daughter wouldn't do this, wouldn't hurt family like this. But I didn't. I looked around wildly, seeking one sympathetic face. Someone planted these. This is a setup. My father approached, his face carved from stone. Estelle, stop. Just stop. We found the jewelry in your possession. Making wild accusations only makes this worse. Dad, you know me. You know I would never. I thought I knew you. His voice broke on the words. But the daughter I raised wouldn't steal, wouldn't lie. That's when Bradley delivered his killing blow. He cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. I didn't want to say anything, he began, perfectly playing the reluctant witness. But Estelle's been acting strange around Madison and me for months. Inappropriate comments, lingering hugs, showing up places we were. Madison noticed it too, but didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. That's complete bullshit. The curse word exploded from me, making several elderly relatives gasp. She even cornered me before the ceremony. Bradley continued, his voice steady and sincere. Made some wild accusations about seeing me with Jessica at the hotel. I think she might have been trying to break us up. Maybe she took the jewelry as some kind of twisted revenge when I rejected her advances. Jessica stepped forward, placing a comforting hand on Madison's arm. I did see her talking to Bradley earlier. She seemed upset, and she asked to hold my purse during photos, said hers was too heavy. I thought it was weird at the time. The lies came so smoothly, so perfectly timed. I watched my family's faces close against me one by one, choosing to believe the perfect couple over the suddenly suspicious cousin. Marcus, I found my fiancé in the crowd praying for one person to stand by me. He looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize. Cold, distant, disappointed. Jessica told me, he said quietly, about how you've been acting, the comments about Bradley, the jealousy over the wedding. I thought she was exaggerating, but now... You believe her over me, Marcus. We're getting married in 3 months. Are we... He pulled off his engagement ring, placing it on the table. I can't marry someone I don't trust. I'm sorry, Estelle. I'll have my things moved out by tomorrow. The room spun. My family, my fiancé, everyone I loved stood united against me. In the corner, Grandmother Ruth sat clutching her chest, my aunt fanning her with a napkin. Get her out, Madison whispered, mascara streaming down her face. I can't look at her. Get her out. You heard her. My brother David stepped forward, his firefighter build making him an imposing wall. You need to leave. Now. David, please. Don't. Christopher flanked him, my 2 brothers forming a barrier between me and the rest of the family. Just go, Estelle. You've done enough. They escorted me out like a criminal past 300 witnesses to my humiliation. In the parking lot, David turned back one last time. Don't contact us. Don't come to Sunday dinners. Just don't. I sat in my car, watching my brothers disappear back into the country club where my family would spend the rest of the night celebrating without me discussing my betrayal, rewriting history to exclude me from every happy memory. The setup had been flawless. Jessica and Bradley had played their parts perfectly, turning me from beloved cousin to family pariah in less than an hour. As I drove away from everything I'd ever known, my phone buzzed with incoming messages. I didn't need to read them to know what they said. By tomorrow, everyone in Oakwood would know that Estelle Winters was a thief, a liar, and a would-be homewrecker. The truth didn't matter anymore. In my family's eyes, I was already guilty, already gone, already forgotten. The text messages started before I even made it home. My phone buzzed incessantly as I drove through the dark streets of Oakwood, each notification another nail in the coffin of my life. At a red light, I made the mistake of looking. From Christopher, I'm ashamed to call you my sister. Don't ever contact me again. From David, Mom's right, you're dead to us. From my Aunt Sarah, how could you do this to sweet Madison? You were like a daughter to me. Were. From cousins, uncles, family friends, people I'd known since childhood, each message more vicious than the last, each one choosing Madison's lie over my truth. I pulled into my apartment complex just as my phone rang. Grandmother Ruth's number. My heart leaped with hope. Surely Ruth would listen, would know I couldn't have done this. Grandmother. Heavy breathing, then my Aunt Patricia's voice. She collapsed, Estelle, right after you left. The stress, the shock of what you did. The paramedics are here now. Oh God, is she okay? I'm coming to the hospital. Don't you dare. Patricia's voice could have frozen fire. Haven't you done enough? The doctor said it's a mild cardiac event brought on by emotional trauma. You did this. If she dies, her blood is on your hands. The line went dead. I sat in my car engine, running, unable to move. My grandmother, the woman who'd helped raise me, who'd invested in my dreams, was in an ambulance because of a lie I couldn't disprove. Inside my apartment, the silence felt alive, pressing against me from all sides. Marcus's things were everywhere. His coffee mug on the counter, his running shoes by the door, his pillow still indented from this morning. This morning when we'd made love and talked about our own wedding plans, a lifetime ago. I tried calling him, straight to voicemail. Called again and again. On the fourth try, a woman answered. Stop calling, Jessica said, her voice triumphant. Marcus is with me. He's been telling me about your obsession with Bradley, how you've been acting erratic. I'm just glad he found out what kind of person you really are before the wedding. You're sick, I whispered. You and Bradley planned this whole thing. Prove it. She laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Oh, wait, you can't. Because everyone saw the jewelry in your purse. Everyone heard Bradley's testimony. Even your own fiancé knows you're lying. Why would you do this to me? You should have minded your own business, Estelle. Stayed in your lane. Now you get to live with the consequences. She hung up. I threw my phone across the room, watching it shatter against the wall. It felt good for exactly 3 seconds before reality crashed back down. Sleep was impossible. I paced my apartment like a caged animal, replaying every moment, looking for something I could have done differently. Should I have confronted Madison directly? Gone to my parents first, kept my mouth shut entirely. By 3 a.m, exhaustion finally won. I collapsed on the couch, still in my bridesmaid dress, makeup smeared across my face like war paint from a battle I'd lost. The pounding on my door at 7 a.m. jolted me awake. Hope flared ridiculously. Maybe someone had realized the truth. Maybe my family had come to apologize. I opened the door to find Marcus with 2 of his friends, a moving truck visible in the parking lot below. We're here for my stuff, he said, not meeting my eyes. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Marcus, please, can we just talk 5 minutes? There's nothing to talk about. He pushed past me, his friends following. Jessica told me everything. How you've been obsessed with Bradley, making up stories. She said you even tried to kiss him at the engagement party. That never happened. She's lying. Everyone's lying except you, right? He grabbed a box, started throwing his belongings into it. The whole family, Jessica Bradley, all part of some massive conspiracy against poor, innocent Estelle. Yes, that's exactly what this is. He finally looked at me then, and the disgust in his eyes made me step back. Listen to yourself. You sound crazy. Thank God I found out now instead of after we were married. They worked efficiently, stripping 3 years of relationship from my apartment in under an hour. Pictures, books, the engagement ring I'd placed on the kitchen counter. Our life together reduced to boxes labeled with black Sharpie. I loved you, I said as he carried the last box to the door. Doesn't that count for anything? I loved who I thought you were. He paused in the doorway. The Estelle I loved wouldn't have stolen from family, wouldn't have tried to destroy her cousin's marriage out of jealousy. That person never existed, did she? The door closed with a finality that echoed through my bones. I was alone. Completely, utterly alone. Monday morning brought fresh hell. I'd taken the day off for wedding recovery, but my phone rang at 8 sharp. My manager at Oakwood General. Estelle, I'm calling about a concerning phone call we received. My stomach plummeted. What kind of call? Someone claiming to be a family member says you stole valuable jewelry at a wedding. They're threatening to go to the medical board if we don't take action. It's a family dispute, a misunderstanding. It has nothing to do with my work. I'm sorry, but we can't have nurses with questionable ethics treating vulnerable patients. We're placing you on administrative leave pending an investigation. Please don't come in until further notice. You're suspending me based on an anonymous phone call. The caller provided quite a bit of detail, and frankly, Estelle, if your own family doesn't trust you, how can we— Another door closing, another piece of my life crumbling. I sat on my empty couch in my empty apartment, watching my empty future stretch before me. The doorbell rang that afternoon. A courier with a certified letter from the law offices of Henderson and Associates, Grandmother Ruth's lawyers. This letter serves as formal notice that you have been removed as a beneficiary from the last will and testament of Ruth Patricia Winters. Your grandmother feels this action is necessary given recent events that have called your character into question. I didn't read the rest. Couldn't. Ruth had written me into her will when I was 18, a gesture of faith in my future. Now that faith was gone, erased like I'd never existed. The final blow came through social media. Someone, probably Jessica, had posted photos from the wedding on Facebook. In the comments, my family members competed to denounce me more thoroughly. Can't believe she fooled us for so long. Always knew something was off about her. Poor Madison betrayed by someone she loved like a sister. Years of love, decades of memories, a lifetime of belonging, all torched in a single night. They'd rewritten history, already casting me as the villain in every shared story. The cousin who'd helped raise Madison became the jealous relative who'd tried to steal her joy. The daughter who'd made her parents proud became the thief who'd shamed them. The granddaughter who'd inherited Ruth's strength became the betrayer who'd literally broken her heart. I deactivated my accounts, but the damage was done. Everyone in our small Connecticut town would know by tomorrow. The grocery store clerks, the mailmen, the nurses I'd worked beside for 5 years. My reputation, carefully built through decades of kindness and hard work, destroyed in a single evening. As night fell on the worst 48 hours of my life, I sat in darkness, unable to afford the luxury of electricity I might not be able to pay for without a job. My phone cracked, but still functional, showed no messages, no calls. The silence was complete. But in that silence, something else grew, a tiny spark of determination fed by the injustice of it all. They'd taken everything, but they hadn't broken me. Not completely. Not yet. I pulled out my laptop and started searching. New cities, new hospitals, new lives. If my family wanted me dead to them, then I'd give them exactly what they wanted. Estelle Winters of Oakwood, Connecticut would disappear. The only question was who I'd become next. The next 3 days blurred together in a haze of survival mode. I'd moved from the couch to the bed to the kitchen floor, unable to find a single place in my apartment that didn't carry memories of the life I'd lost. Every surface held ghosts. The bathroom mirror where Marcus had left sticky notes with silly messages. The kitchen table where we'd shared hundreds of meals. The bedroom we'd planned to recreate in our future home after the September wedding that would never happen. My landlord called Tuesday morning. "Oh, Estelle, I hate to bother you, but I received a concerning call about illegal activities in your apartment. What, Mr. Peterson? That's ridiculous. I know. You've been a perfect tenant for 3 years. But they said you're involved in some theft ring that police might be searching the place soon. I can't have that kind of trouble here. It's a lie, a family dispute that's gotten out of hand. He sighed heavily. I'm sorry, dear, but I have other tenants to think about. I'll need you out by the end of the month. I'll return your security deposit in full, no questions asked, if you leave quietly. 3 weeks to find a new home with no job, no references, and a reputation in tatters. I thanked him numbly and hung up. The refrigerator hummed in the silence. I opened it to find Marcus had taken his labeled containers, but left mine. Somehow, that small mercy felt worse than if he'd thrown them away. Even in leaving, he'd been methodical fair. He'd really believed I was guilty. I forced myself to eat something choking down yogurt that tasted like paste. My phone still cracked from its collision with the wall showed 17 missed calls. Hope flickered until I saw they were all from unknown numbers. Reporters, probably. Small-town scandal traveled fast. The knock on my door made me freeze. Soft, tentative. Not the aggressive pounding of Marcus's moving crew or the professional rap of a courier. I peered through the peephole to see my neighbor Mrs. Chen holding a covered dish. Estelle, honey, I brought soup. I opened the door cautiously. Mrs. Chen had lived next door for 2 years, exchanging pleasantries and accepting packages for each other. Her eyes held sympathy, not judgment. I don't know what happened, she said, pressing the container into my hands. Don't need to know, but I heard Marcus moving out, and I remember when my husband left. Nobody should go through that alone. Kindness from a near stranger when my own family had abandoned me. I nearly broke down right there in the doorway. Thank you, Gananis, I managed. She patted my hand. You're a good girl. I've seen how you help people coming home in those scrubs at all hours. Whatever they're saying, I don't believe it. After she left, I sat with the soup crying for the first time since the wedding. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears sliding down my face as I ate homemade chicken noodle soup and felt human for 5 minutes. My phone buzzed. Against my better judgment, I looked. Unknown number, saw what happened on Facebook. Always knew you were trash. Hope you rot. Another, can't believe we let you near our children at the hospital. Sick. And another, Madison should press charges. Thieves belong in jail. I turned the phone off completely. The outside world had nothing for me now but poison. Wednesday brought a new horror. My bank account, which should have had $3,000 in savings, showed a balance of $200. Frantic investigation revealed that Marcus had withdrawn his half of our joint savings. Legally, he had every right. We'd opened the account together, both names on it. He'd taken exactly half down to the cent. Fair, logical, devastating. The math was simple and terrifying. Rent was due in 2 weeks. Utilities, food, gas. My last paycheck would come Friday, but administrative leave meant no more after that. I had maybe enough to survive 1 month if I ate ramen and nothing else. My car insurance company called that afternoon. Someone had reported that I might be using my vehicle for illegal activities. They weren't canceling my policy, but they were raising my rates, effective immediately. It was almost impressive how thoroughly my life was being dismantled. Every system, every safety net, every connection severed with surgical precision. I wondered if Jessica had a spreadsheet somewhere checking off destroyed elements of my existence. Thursday morning, I discovered she probably did. I'd driven to the grocery store at 5 a.m., hoping to avoid anyone I knew. The store was nearly empty, just me and the night shift workers preparing for the day. I grabbed essentials, keeping my head-down baseball cap pulled low. At the self-checkout, my credit card declined. Impossible. I had a $1,000 limit and barely any balance. I tried again. Declined. Need help. The attendant, a teenager with kind eyes, approached. My card's not working. Can you try again? She ran it manually, shook her head, says to contact your bank. Want to try another card? I paid with my dwindling cash and fled. In the parking lot, I called the credit card company. After 20 minutes on hold, a representative informed me that they'd received notice of potential fraudulent activity on my account. What kind of notice? Such a third party contacted us with evidence that you may have obtained this card through false pretenses. We're freezing the account pending investigation. This is insane. I've had this card for 5 years. Perfect payment history. I understand your frustration, ma'am. You'll receive documentation by mail within 7 to 10 business days. Another door slammed shut. I sat in my car in the empty parking lot, watching the sun rise over a town that no longer felt like home. Somewhere my family was waking up, having breakfast, living their lives without me. Did they think of me at all? Did Madison feel even a twinge of guilt? Or had Bradley's lies completely erased her memories of the cousin who'd loved her since birth? My phone turned back on, out of necessity, showed one new voicemail from Oakwood General's HR department. Ms. Winters, this is regarding your administrative leave. We've completed our preliminary investigation and have concerns about your continued employment. Please contact us to schedule a termination meeting at your earliest convenience. Termination meeting, not a hearing, not a chance to defend myself. They'd already decided. I thought about fighting, hiring a lawyer, demanding justice, screaming the truth until someone listened. But with what money? With what credibility? Jessica and Bradley had crafted the perfect lie witnessed by 300 people. My word against theirs was worthless. That afternoon, I made a decision. If Estelle Winters was dead to everyone who'd ever loved her, then maybe she should actually disappear. I opened my laptop and began researching. Cities far from Connecticut, hospitals that might not dig too deep into references, states with lower costs of living where my meager savings might stretch further. Seattle called to me, about as far from Oakwood as I could get while staying in the country, big enough to disappear in, constant rain to match my mood, strong medical community that might give a disgraced nurse a second chance. But first, I had one more call to make. My grandmother's voice, weak but alert, answered on the third ring. Hello. Grandma Ruth, it's me. Please don't hang up. Silence. Then, you have some nerve calling here. I need you to know I didn't do it. I didn't take Madison's jewelry. Jessica and Bradley set me up because I caught them together. Estelle Marie. Her voice carried decades of authority, even weakened by her cardiac event. I am 83 years old. I have loved you every day of your 28 years. But I will not tolerate a thief and a liar in my family. Grandma, you know me. You helped raise me. Could I really do something like this? I thought I knew you, but the granddaughter I knew wouldn't have hurt Madison for any reason, wouldn't have brought shame on our family name. What about innocent until proven guilty? What about trusting the girl you helped put through nursing school? The evidence was in your purse, child, your own purse, and Bradley. That young man had no reason to lie. He gains nothing from accusing you. He gains everything he gets to keep his affair with Jessica secret. Enough! The word cracked like a whip. You've chosen your lie and you'll live with it. Don't call again. Don't come to the house. Don't contact any of us. You're no granddaughter of mine. The line went dead. The last bridge burned. I spent that night packing what little I could fit in my car, clothes, important documents, the few photos that didn't include my traitorous family or ex-fiancé. Everything else I'd leave for the landlord to deal with. Let him sell it, burn it, whatever. These things belonged to a person who no longer existed. Friday's paycheck hit my account at midnight. I transferred every penny to a new bank account I'd opened online, one my family couldn't track or sabotage. It would be enough for gas to Seattle and maybe a week in a cheap motel while I job hunted. As dawn broke over Oakwood for what would be the last time I loaded my car, Mrs. Chen watched from her window, offering a small wave. I'd left her a note thanking her for the soup for believing in me when no one else would. I drove past every landmark of my former life: the hospital where I'd saved lives and built my career, the church where I'd planned to marry Marcus, the streets I'd trick-or-treated on as a child holding David's hand while Christopher ran ahead, Grandmother Ruth's house where Sunday dinners would continue without me. At the town limits, I pulled over and looked back one last time. Somewhere behind me, Madison was probably planning thank you cards with Jessica, believing her maid of honor had saved her from a treacherous cousin. Bradley was playing the devoted husband secure in his deception. My parents were explaining to concerned friends why their eldest child was no longer welcome in their home. Let them have their lies. Let them have their perfect family with its perfect facade and its missing piece they'd carved out themselves. I was done bleeding for people who discarded me like trash at the first sign of trouble. I put the car in drive and headed west, leaving Estelle Winters and everything she'd ever loved in the rearview mirror. She was dead to them after all. Time to see who I could become in her place. The highway stretched ahead, endless and terrifying and free. I had nothing left to lose because they'd already taken everything, but maybe that meant I had everything to gain. Seattle greeted me with exactly what I'd expected: rain. Not the dramatic downpours of movie scenes, but a steady, persistent drizzle that seemed to seep into everything. After 4 days of driving, sleeping in rest stops, and surviving on truck stop coffee, the gray sky felt like a welcome blanket of anonymity. My first week in the city was a masterclass in humility. The cheap motel I'd found online turned out to be an optimistic description for what was essentially a closet with suspicious stains and a broken deadbolt. But at $40 a night, it was what I could afford while I searched for work. The nursing shortage everyone talked about apparently didn't extend to nurses with mysteriously absent references. My first 3 interviews ended the moment they asked about my previous employment. 5 years at Oakwood General, but you can't provide a supervisor reference. It's complicated. There was a family situation. I see. We'll be in touch. They never were. By week 2, desperation had set in. My carefully hoarded money dwindled with each passing day. I'd eaten nothing but peanut butter sandwiches for 4 days straight. The motel manager kept eyeing me like he was counting down to when I'd run out of cash. That's when I met Bernie. I'd been sitting in a coffee shop nursing a single black coffee for 3 hours while using their Wi-Fi to job hunt. The owner, a woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes, approached my table. "You gonna order food or just sit there looking like the world ended?" "I'm sorry, I'll go." "Didn't say you had to leave. Asked if you were going to eat." "I can't. Not today." She studied me for a long moment, then sat down across from me. "You're not from here, running from something or toward something?" "Both. Neither. I don't know anymore." "Nurse." She gestured at my laptop screen showing a hospital job listings. Maybe. It's complicated." Bernie, as she introduced herself, owned the coffee shop and the small apartment building above it. Her nephew ran a medical staffing agency that placed nurses in facilities that didn't ask too many questions. Cash jobs, temporary placements, the kind of work that kept you afloat while you rebuilt. "Why would you help me?" "Because 30 years ago, I was you. Different story, same lost look. Someone helped me then. Now I help when I can." She made a call. By that afternoon, I had a night shift at a nursing home that needed coverage and didn't care about references as long as I could prove I had a license. The work was harder than the ICU in many ways. Understaffed facilities with elderly patients who deserved better than the bare minimum we could provide. But it was work and it paid cash, and nobody asked about my past. I found a studio apartment in Bernie's building. Apartment was generous. It was basically a converted storage room with a hot plate and a bathroom so small you could touch both walls at once. But it was mine and the lock worked, and Bernie's coffee shop downstairs meant I never went completely hungry. 3 months in, I discovered I was pregnant. The test showed two pink lines on a rainy Tuesday morning. I stared at it, calculating dates, knowing exactly when it had happened. That last morning with Marcus when we'd been planning wedding centerpieces and baby names for the future we'd never have. I sat on my bathroom floor and laughed. Actually laughed because of course. Of course I'd be pregnant now alone in a strange city with a cash job and a studio apartment. The universe's final joke on Estelle Winters. Termination was the logical choice. I had nothing to offer a child. No stability, no family, no support system. But as days turned into weeks, I couldn't do it. This baby was the only family I had left, even if it would never know its father or grandparents or the legacy of Sunday dinners it should have inherited. I told Bernie over coffee on a slow afternoon. "Well," she said after a long pause, "guess we better find you better insurance." She knew a clinic that worked with undocumented immigrants and people in complicated situations. They didn't ask questions beyond medical necessity. I paid cash for appointments, watched my body change, and wondered what kind of life I was bringing this child into. The nursing home gave me as many shifts as I could handle. I worked until my feet swelled and my back screamed, saving every penny for what was coming. Other nurses, noticing my condition, started bringing me things. Hand-me-down maternity clothes, vitamins they accidentally ordered too many of. One older nurse, Maria, simply started packing an extra lunch every day and leaving it in the break room fridge with my name on it. When are you due?" she asked one night as we changed bedpans and checked vitals. "March." "Oh, family excited." "There's just me." She nodded like that answered everything. Maybe it did. I went into labor alone on a Wednesday night, called a taxi to the hospital because ambulances cost too much, checked in as Jane Smith because even here 3,000 miles from home I was afraid of my name following me. Sophie arrived at 3:27 a.m. on March 15th, screaming and perfect in mine. 6 pounds, 2 ounces of possibility I hadn't earned but would die protecting. She had Marcus's nose and my stubborn chin and eyes that would probably turn brown like her grandmother she'd never meet. "Dad coming?" the nurse asked gently as I held my daughter for the first time. "No, there's no one." "There's her," she said, adjusting Sophie's tiny hat. "Sometimes that's enough." Bernie visited the next day with a gift bag full of practical things, diapers, wipes, onesies that actually snapped correctly. She held Sophie while I dozed, exhausted from 18 hours of labor and 28 years of life. "She's beautiful," Bernie said when I woke. "What's her full name?" "Sophie Ruth Winters." After someone special. After someone who should have been. Recovery was brutal. Caring for a newborn alone while healing from childbirth felt like running a marathon with broken legs, but Sophie was an easy baby, as if she knew I couldn't handle anything more. She slept in 3-hour stretches, ate well, and stared at me with those dark eyes like she was memorizing my face. I went back to work when she was 6 weeks old. Bernie's niece watched her during my night shifts, refusing payment beyond the occasional coffee in Danish. The village of people who'd materialized around us was small but fierce, held together by the understanding that sometimes chosen family is all you get. Years passed in a blur of night shifts, and first words and scraped knees kissed better. Sophie grew from a helpless infant into a curious toddler who asked endless questions about everything, except why we didn't have grandparents like the kids at playground. I eventually got legitimate work at a small community hospital that valued my experience over my mysteriously sparse references. Started rebuilding my career one carefully earned trust at a time. Moved from the studio to a one-bedroom where Sophie had her own space painted yellow because she'd decided it was the happiest color. On her 3rd birthday, as she blew out candles on a homemade cake surrounded by Bernie and Maria and the small family we'd built, I watched my daughter and felt something I hadn't experienced since that June night when everything shattered. Peace. Not happiness exactly, not yet, but the absence of constant panic, the ability to breathe without checking over my shoulder, the knowledge that we'd survived the worst and built something new from the ashes. "Mommy, make a wish," Sophie demanded, offering me the last candle. I closed my eyes and wished for continued invisibility, for my family to never find us, for Sophie to never know the pain of being discarded by people who should love you unconditionally. "What did you wish for?" she asked. "If I tell you, it won't come true." She nodded solemnly, already learning that some secrets keep you safe. That night after Sophie was asleep, I did what I'd sworn I wouldn't. I Googled my family, just a quick search to see if they were thriving in my absence. Madison's Facebook was public. Photos of her and Bradley smiling at charity galas and weekend getaways. No children yet, but plenty of inspirational quotes about blessed marriages and true love. The comments from family members I recognized made my stomach turn. My mother calling them couple goals. David posting about his amazing brother-in-law. I closed the laptop and poured a glass of wine I couldn't really afford. They'd moved on seamlessly, the hole I'd left already healed over like I'd never existed. Good. That's what I'd wanted. What we both needed. Sophie cried out in her sleep, a bad dream probably. I went to her, smoothing her hair, whispering that Mommy was here, that she was safe, that nothing bad would find us in our yellow room in the rain. She settled back to sleep, one small hand clutching mine. I stayed there watching her breathe, marveling at this perfect thing that had come from the worst time of my life. My family had thrown me away, but in losing them, I'd found her. Maybe that was worth everything I'd lost. Maybe someday I'd even believe it. 3 more years passed like chapters in someone else's story. Sophie grew from a chattering toddler into a thoughtful 6-year-old who read everything she could get her hands on and asked questions that sometimes took my breath away. "Mommy, why don't we have any pictures of when you were little?" We were organizing her school project about family histories, and of course she'd noticed the glaring absence in our photo albums. "They got lost in a move." I said the lie, bitter but necessary. "Sometimes that happens." "Oh." She considered this with that serious expression that made her look older than her years. "That's sad, but we can take lots of pictures now so I don't lose them when I'm big." "Yes, baby, we can do that." My position at Northwest Community Hospital had evolved from night float nurse to charge nurse in the cardiac unit. The irony wasn't lost on me, spending my days healing hearts, while mine remained carefully guarded, but the work fulfilled me, and my colleagues had become the closest thing to friends I allowed myself. There was Aisha, who brought Sophie books from her own kids' outgrown collection. James, who taught me how to invest my tiny savings so Sophie might actually have a college fund someday. Dr. Patricia Chen, no relation to my old neighbor who'd recommended me for the promotion I'd been certain I wouldn't get. "You're one of the best nurses I've worked with," she'd said simply. "Your past is your business. Your present speaks for itself." If only she knew. It was a Thursday afternoon when Thomas walked into my life. Not dramatically, not with fireworks or grand gestures. He was just another worried parent in the cardiac unit sitting vigil beside his 8-year-old son who just had surgery to repair a congenital defect. Is he okay?" I asked, checking the monitors with practiced efficiency. "He will be." The man looked exhausted, the kind of bone-deep tired I recognized from my own reflection during Sophie's early years. This is his second surgery, his mom. She didn't make it through the first one 3 years ago. "I'm sorry." "Thanks. We're managing. James here's a trooper and his twin brother Alex keeps us both going." Over the next few days, I found myself lingering in James's room longer than strictly necessary. Thomas was a widowed architect who'd redesigned his entire life around his boys. He told Dad jokes that made his son groan despite the surgical pain. He learned to French braid because Alex decided that's how he wanted his hair. He carried 2 different backpacks because the twins refused to share even though they were identical. "You have kids?" he asked one afternoon while James slept. "A daughter, Sophie. She's 6. 6 is good. They still think you know everything at 6. When does that stop?" "I'll let you know when I find out." We talked during my shifts, careful conversations that danced around our respective wounds. He didn't ask about Sophie's father. I didn't ask for details about his wife's death. We existed in the careful present tense of single parents who'd learned that the past could swallow you whole if you let it. James recovered beautifully. On discharge day, Thomas hesitated at the door. "This is probably inappropriate, but would you and Sophie maybe want to get ice cream with us sometime? The boys have been asking about the nice nurse who snuck James extra pudding." "That's against protocol, you know, the pudding and the fraternizing." "I won't tell if you won't." It took me 3 weeks to say yes. 3 weeks of Bernie telling me I was an idiot for hesitating, of Sophie asking when she'd get to meet the boy with the fixed heart, of lying awake wondering if I was ready to let anyone new into our carefully constructed world. The ice cream date was chaos. Alex and James competed to see who could tell the most embarrassing stories about their dad. Sophie, usually shy with strangers, immediately claimed Alex as her new best friend when he shared his chocolate cone with her. Thomas and I spent most of the time preventing dairy-based disasters and apologizing to other patrons. "This is a disaster," he said, laughing, as James demonstrated how far he could shoot ice cream through the gap in his teeth. "The best kind." I agreed, watching Sophie giggle until she hiccuped. We began existing in each other's orbits. Playground meetups where the kids could run off their energy while we compared notes on single parenting. Saturday morning pancakes at Bernie's shop, which had become my second home. Homework sessions that devolved into Lego building competitions. "You never talk about Sophie's dad," Thomas observed one evening. We were watching the kids attempt to build the world's tallest block tower in his living room. "You never ask." "Figured you'd tell me when you're ready, or not. Some stories don't need telling." "What about your wife?" "Car accident. Drunk driver. James was in the car. That's how they found his heart defect during the trauma workup. Silver lining, I guess, though. I hate that phrase." "I'm sorry." "Me too. Every day. But then I see the boys laughing or meet someone who makes me remember what hope feels like, and I think maybe broken doesn't mean unfixable." I kissed him. Right there in his living room with 3 kids shrieking about architectural integrity in the background. Kissed him because he understood that some stories stayed untold, that some wounds never fully healed, that moving forward didn't mean forgetting what lay behind. "Gross," Alex announced, and we broke apart to find 3 small faces watching us with varying degrees of disgust and delight. "Does this mean Sophie's our sister now?" James asked. "That's not how it works, dummy," Alex informed him. "But boys," Thomas warned. "I always wanted brothers," Sophie said thoughtfully, "even if they're gross." Say. The evening dissolved into tickle fights and negotiations about potential sibling status. But something had shifted. The careful walls I'd built around our life suddenly had a door, and Thomas stood on the threshold offering not to tear them down, but to be let in. We took it slow. Dinners became more frequent. The kids campaigned for sleepovers. Thomas revealed he'd been in therapy since his wife's death, working through grief and guilt and the challenge of raising boys who'd never know their mother. I told him pieces of truth that Sophie's father had left, that my family situation was complicated, that trust came hard for me. "I'm not going anywhere," he said simply one night as we watched the kids play in the sprinkler. "Whatever you're carrying, whenever you're ready to share it or not share it, I'm not going anywhere." "You can't promise that." "Watch me." 6 months later, I believed him. The kids had decided they were siblings regardless of legal status. Thomas had a key to our apartment. I'd learned how to tell the twins apart even when they tried to trick me. We'd become something I'd stopped believing in a family, not replacing what I'd lost, but building something entirely new. Which is why I should have known the universe would choose that moment to remind me that the past never really lets you go. It started small, a message request on LinkedIn from a name I didn't recognize. Then another, then an email to my work address asking if I was the Estelle Winters formerly of Oakwood, Connecticut. I ignored them all deleted without reading, but the dread settled in my chest like a stone. 6 years of careful invisibility, and somehow they'd found me. "You okay?" Thomas asked over dinner. "You seem distracted." "It's just work stuff." I lied, helping Alex cut his chicken while my mind raced through possibilities. How had they found me? Why now? What did they want? The answer came 2 days later in the form of a man in an expensive suit standing outside the hospital's employee entrance. "Estelle Winters." "I think you have the wrong person." "I don't think I do." He handed me a business card. "Maxwell Sterling, private investigator. Your family hired me to find you. They'd like to make contact." "Tell them I'm dead." "Ms. Winters?" "No. Whatever they want, the answer is no. I have nothing to say to them." "They said you'd say that." He pulled out an envelope. "They wanted me to give you this and to tell you that your grandmother is dying. Actually dying this time. She's asking for you." I took the envelope with numb fingers. Inside a single photo, my mother, father, brothers, and Madison at what looked like last Christmas. But something was wrong. Their smiles looked forced. Madison seemed thin, hollow, and Bradley was nowhere in the picture. What happened to... I stopped myself. I didn't care. Couldn't care. "I'm just the messenger, ma'am. They're staying at the Fairmont downtown, room 412. They'll be there through the weekend." He left me standing there holding a photo of the family who'd thrown me away, wondering why the universe insisted on testing every bit of strength I'd managed to build. That night, after the kids were asleep, I told Thomas everything. The wedding, the setup, the exile, Sophie's father who didn't know she existed, the family who'd chosen a lie over their own daughter. He listened without interrupting, holding my hand as I ugly cried through the hardest parts. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Do you want to see them?" "No, maybe. I don't know. How can I face them after everything?" "The question is, do you need to? For you, not for them. Would you regret it if you don't?" "My grandmother, if she's really dying..." "Then that's your answer. But Estelle..." "You don't go alone. I'll be right there. We all will if you want. You've got a family now. A real one. They can't hurt you anymore unless you let them." I looked at this man who'd taken on me and all my baggage without flinching, who'd given Sophie the father figures she deserved, who'd proven that some people stayed even when staying was hard. Maybe I was strong enough to face my past. Maybe with Thomas beside me, I could look my family in the eye and refuse to be the victim they'd created. Maybe it was time for Estelle Winters to stop running and start fighting. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, I'll meet them, once. But on my terms." "Your terms," he agreed. "Always your terms." The photo still lay on the table between us. 6 years of silence about to end. But I wasn't the same woman who'd fled Oakwood in disgrace. I was a mother, a partner, a survivor. Let them see what they'd thrown away. Let them see what I'd become without them. I didn't sleep that night. Thomas dozed beside me, one arm protective across my waist, while I stared at the ceiling, replaying every word the private investigator had said. Room 412. Through the weekend. My grandmother dying, actually dying this time. By morning, I'd changed my mind 17 times. Sophie bounced into our room at 6:30, crawling between us with a book about butterflies she wanted to read together. Her normalcy, her complete ignorance of the storm brewing, made my chest tight. Pancakes. Thomas offered, reading my mood perfectly. "I'll take the kids to Bernie's, give you some time to think." "I don't deserve you." "Stop that." He kissed my forehead. We've talked about the self-deprecation thing. After they left, I called in sick to work something I'd never done and sat in my quiet apartment trying to organize thoughts that refused to be organized. The envelope with the photo lay on my kitchen counter like an unexploded bomb. My phone rang. Bernie. Thomas told me, "You need backup." I need a time machine. Fresh out, but I've got coffee and opinions if you want them. I found myself in her shop 20 minutes later in the same corner booth where she'd offered me salvation 6 years ago. The coffee was strong, the shop nearly empty in the mid-morning lull. "So they found you," Bernie said without preamble. "Question is, what do you want from this?" "Nothing. I want nothing from them." "Bullshit. If you wanted nothing, you'd have thrown that card away and gone to work." My grandmother is either dying or not dying, and neither situation changes what they did to you. Try again. What do you want? I thought about it, really thought about it. What did I want from the family who'd believed lies over love? An apology? I said finally. I want them to look me in the eye and admit they were wrong. I want them to know what they cost me. I want them to see Sophie and understand they threw away their granddaughter, their niece, their cousin. I want them to hurt. Like I hurt. There we go. Now, how do you get that? I don't. People like them don't apologize. They justify. They minimize. They find ways to make it my fault. Bernie leaned back, studying me. You've grown up, kid. 6 years ago, you'd have gone running to that hotel hoping they'd love you again. Now, you know better. So what do I do? You decide if seeing them serves you or them. If it helps you heal or just reopens wounds. Nobody else can make that call. I spent the day walking, through the parks where Sophie had learned to ride a bike, past the hospital where I'd rebuilt my career, along the waterfront where Thomas had first told me he was falling for me. This city had given me everything my hometown had stolen. Did I really want to risk contaminating it with the past? But the photo haunted me. Madison's hollow eyes, my parents looking older diminished, the absence of Bradley like a scream in the silence. Something had changed back home, and despite everything I needed to know, what? That evening I made my decision. I want to meet them, I told Thomas, but not at their hotel, somewhere public, somewhere I can leave if I need to. The coffee shop at Pike Place, lots of exits, lots of witnesses. You've thought about this. I've thought about protecting you since the day you let me. We arranged it for Saturday morning. I had the private investigator's card, called the number with shaking hands. He answered on the first ring. "Ms. Winters, I hoped you'd call. Tell them Pike Place Market, the original Starbucks, Saturday at 10. They get 1 hour. Any other messages?" "Yes. Tell them I'm bringing my family. If they have a problem with that, they can go home now." Understood. I'll relay the message. Friday night, I sat Sophie down for a conversation I dreaded for years. "Baby, you know how I told you we don't have pictures of when Mommy was little?" She nodded, suddenly serious. "Well, tomorrow we're going to meet some people from when I was young. They're my parents and brothers, your grandparents and uncles." Her eyes widened. "I have grandparents. Why didn't you tell me?" "It's complicated, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups have fights that are so big they can't be friends anymore. That's what happened with us." "Are they mean?" "They were mean to Mommy once, but now they want to talk, and I think maybe we should listen." "Will they like me?" My heart shattered. "Oh, baby, if they don't absolutely love you, then they're the silliest people in the world." "Okay, can Alex and James come to safety in numbers?" Sometimes 6-year-olds were wiser than their years. Saturday morning dawned clear, one of Seattle's rare perfect days. I dressed carefully, jeans and a sweater that said, "I'm doing fine without you," without screaming it. Sophie wore her favorite purple dress with the tulle skirt because first impressions matter, Mommy. Thomas and the boys met us outside the market. My makeshift army, a widow's architect twin boys who called me Aunt Estelle, and a daughter who didn't know she was about to meet the people who'd thrown us both away. "Ready?" Thomas asked, taking my hand. No, let's do it anyway. The market buzzed with typical Saturday energy. Tourists, locals, fish flying through the air at the famous stands. Normal life happening while I prepared to face my past. We reached the coffee shop 10 minutes early, claiming a corner table with clear sightlines. I want hot chocolate, Sophie announced. Me too, the twins chorused. Coffee for the adults, Thomas said. I'll order. You breathe. At exactly 10 o'clock, they walked in. My mother entered first, and the years hadn't been kind. Her perfect composure was gone, replaced by something fragile. My father followed, his hair completely gray now, shoulders bent like he carried invisible weight. David and Christopher flanked them, my brothers, looking everywhere but at me. Then Madison, and I understood the hollow look in the photo. She was skeletal designer clothes hanging off her frame. Her hair, once glossy and perfect, lay limp against her skull. But it was her eyes that stopped me empty, haunted, ringed with the kind of darkness makeup couldn't hide. They spotted us, froze as a unit. My mother's hand flew to her mouth when she saw Sophie, the recognition instantaneous and devastating. Estelle, my father said the word barely a whisper. Dawn and Patricia, David, Christopher, Madison. I use their names like shields. This is my partner Thomas and his sons, and this is my daughter Sophie. Your daughter? My mother sank into an empty chair, staring at Sophie like she was seeing a ghost. Hi, Sophie said brightly, oblivious to the tension. Are you my grandma? Mommy said you might be silly, but you don't look silly. David made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. Christopher just stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Yes, my mother whispered. I'm Patricia. Cool, I never had a grandma before. Do you bake cookies? Grandmas on TV always bake cookies. Thomas returned with drinks, setting them down with deliberate calm. Everyone good here. Perfect, I said, meaning it. His presence, the boys' chatter, Sophie's innocence, they were my armor against whatever came next. Estelle. Madison spoke for the first time, her voice thin as paper. I need to tell you something about the wedding, about what really... Stop! I held up my hand. Before anyone says anything else, let me be clear. I agreed to this meeting for one reason, to let you see what you threw away. This beautiful, smart, wonderful child who grew up without grandparents because you chose to believe lies over your own daughter. We know, Madison whispered. We know everything now. About Jessica and Bradley, about what they did to you. We found the security footage. Good for you. Only took 6 years. Estelle, please. My father leaned forward. We came here to apologize, to beg your forgiveness. We were wrong, so terribly wrong. You slapped me, I said to my mother, in front of 300 people. You said I was dead to you. I know, I've regretted it every day since... Have you? Because you seemed fine at Christmas. I pulled out the photo. Everyone, all smiles without me. That's not... We were trying... David struggled for words. We missed you. Every holiday, every Sunday dinner. We'd set your place at the table for 2 years before Mom finally stopped. But you never looked for me, until now. Why now? Madison made that broken sound again. Because I'm dying inside and I can't do it carrying this guilt. Because Bradley left me for Jessica 2 years after the wedding and I realized they'd been planning it all along. Because I helped them destroy you and I can't... She broke down completely, shoulders shaking with sobs that sounded like they'd been building for years. My mother reached for her, then stopped looking at me as if for permission. Mommy. Sophie tugged my sleeve, worried. Why is that lady crying? Because she's sad, baby. Should we hug her? Hugs help when you're sad. Trust my daughter to offer compassion I couldn't muster, but I wasn't ready. 6 years of exile couldn't be erased by tears and regret. I need you all to understand something, I said, voice steady despite my racing heart. You don't get to waltz back into my life because you finally learned the truth. You don't get to claim Sophie because your guilt demands absolution. You threw me away based on lies you wanted to believe. We were fools, Christopher said quietly. All of us. We chose the easy story over the hard truth. We failed you as a family. Yes, you did. Is grandmother really dying? I had to know. Yes, my father confirmed. Lung cancer? Stage 4, she has maybe 2 months. She wants to make things right before. There is no making this right. You stole 6 years. You made me start over with nothing while pregnant and alone. You cost me my career, my home, my sense of self. Sophie grew up without any of you because you valued Madison's perfect wedding over my truth. We know, my mother said, tears streaming. We know we can never undo it. But please, Estelle, let us try. Let us know Sophie. Let us prove we've learned from our mistakes. I looked at Thomas, who gave me the smallest nod. Your terms, his expression said. Always your terms. I'll think about it, I said finally. That's all I can offer. I'll think about it. That's more than we deserve, David said. Yes, it is. We sat in awkward silence for a moment, 6 years of pain packed into a crowded coffee shop, while tourists milled around us oblivious. Can I ask something? Sophie piped up, looking at Madison. Why were you so mean to my mommy? Madison flinched like she'd been slapped. Because I was scared and stupid and I believed lies instead of trusting someone who'd loved me my whole life. That was dumb, Sophie pronounced. Mommy never lies. She even tells the truth about vegetables being good for you when they taste yucky. Despite everything, Christopher snorted. She gets that honesty from you, Stell. Don't call me that. You lost that, right? Of course, I'm sorry. The hour was almost up and I was exhausted. Emotional reunions looked beautiful in movies, but felt like running marathons in real life. We should go, I said, gathering Sophie. I have your PI's number. I'll contact you if and when I'm ready to talk more. Wait, Madison stood shakily. I need you to know. Bradley and Jessica, they're being investigated for fraud now. Turns out the jewelry theft was practice. They've been running scams for years. You weren't their first victim, just their most successful. I processed this numbly. Some vindication, but too late to matter. I hope they rot, I said simply, but that doesn't change what you all did. No, she agreed. It doesn't. I'm in therapy now, trying to understand how I became someone who could betray family like that. The therapist says I have to live with the consequences, but Estelle, losing you is the worst consequence imaginable. Good. It was cruel, maybe, but honesty mattered more than kindness right now. We left them there, my family of choice surrounding me, while my family of origin sat broken at a coffee shop table. Sophie waved goodbye because she was incapable of rudeness. The boys flanked her protectively, already adopting her fierce loyalty. How do you feel? Thomas asked as we emerged into the market sunshine. Like I've been holding my breath for 6 years and just remembered how to exhale. Good, that's good. Sophie seems unscathed. She doesn't understand what they cost us. Maybe that's better. Maybe, but Estelle, you won. You know that, right? They came here broken and you stood there whole. You won. I thought about it as we walked through the market, Sophie chattering about her new grandmother who seemed nice but sad. Had I won, or had we all lost, just in different ways? My phone buzzed, a text from the unknown number. Thank you for seeing us. We'll wait as long as it takes, forever if necessary. We love you. We've always loved you. We just forgot how to show it. Mom. I deleted it, then recovered it, then stared at it until Sophie demanded fish and chips for lunch and life moved forward the way it always did, regardless of the past knocking at the door. Maybe winning looked different than I'd imagined. Maybe it looked like having the power to choose the family to support me and the knowledge that I'd survived their worst and built something better. Fish and chips sound perfect, Onsane told Sophie. And then ice cream, lots of ice cream. Because we're celebrating. Because we're together. That's worth celebrating every day. She beamed and took my hand, skipping toward the pier while my past sat in a coffee shop behind us, waiting for a forgiveness. I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to give. 2 weeks passed in a careful detente. I'd given my family my phone number, my real one, not the burner I'd considered using, but made it clear that contact would happen on my schedule, if at all. They texted occasionally benign messages I mostly ignored. Photos of places we'd gone together as children. Updates on grandmother Ruth's condition. Apologies in various forms, each more desperate than the last. Thomas gave me space to process while keeping life normal for the kids. Sophie had drawn a picture of her new grandmother that I'd hidden in a drawer, unable to look at the hope in those crayon lines. The boys asked occasionally if we'd see those sad people again, but kids are resilient. They moved on to more pressing concerns like soccer practice and whether dinosaurs could have beaten dragons in a fight. I was standing in the cereal aisle at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday, grabbing provisions for the morning chaos when my phone rang. Unknown Connecticut number. I almost didn't answer, but something instinct maybe made me swipe accept. Hello. Is this Estelle Winters? A man's voice, professional, unfamiliar? Who's asking? Detective Raymond Chen, Oakwood Police Department. I'm calling about an investigation involving Jessica Palmer and Bradley Morrison. I understand you were present at an incident 6 years ago involving stolen jewelry. My knees went weak. I graced the shopping cart for support. Yes. Ms. Winters, new evidence has come to light. Would it be possible to speak with you about what happened that night? Are you saying, is this a criminal investigation? Yes, ma'am. We have video evidence of Ms. Palmer planting the jewelry in your purse along with documentation of a broader pattern of fraud. Your family has been extremely cooperative, but we need your statement to move forward with charges. My family gave you the video. They did. Apparently, it's been eating at them since they discovered it. The country club had upgraded their security system just before the wedding, but the family only thought to request the extended footage recently. I abandoned my cart and walked outside needing air. The Seattle drizzle felt like baptism. What exactly do you need from me? Your account of that night, any documentation of damages, lost wages, relocation costs, therapy bills. Ms. Palmer and Mr. Morrison have been running similar schemes for years, but yours was their most elaborate. We believe they specifically targeted you because of your position as maid of honor and your trusted status in the family. They destroyed my life. It came out harsher than intended. Yes, ma'am. That's why we're building a case. Can we arrange a formal interview? I can fly to Seattle, or we can do a video deposition. I thought about Jessica's cold smile, Bradley's smooth lies, the way they'd choreographed my downfall like a performance. Then I thought about Sophie, about the life we'd built from their ashes. I'll do it. Video is fine. Send me the details. Thank you, Ms. Winters, and for what it's worth, I'm sorry this happened to you. What they did, it was unconscionable. After he hung up, I sat in my car in the grocery store parking lot and cried. Not sad tears or angry tears, but the kind that come when a weight you didn't know you were carrying suddenly lifts. Vindication. 6 years late, but finally arrived. I called Thomas. They know. The police know what really happened. Come home, he said simply. Just come home. I found him waiting on the couch, having arranged for the elderly neighbor to listen for the kids. He pulled me into his arms and let me shake apart in safety. They have video, I gasped between sobs. They can see her planting it. Everyone will know I wasn't. I know, baby. I've always known. Everyone who matters has always known. But now they'll all know. The 300 people who watched my mother slap me. The coworkers who whispered. Everyone who believed I was a thief and a liar. Does that matter? What they think? I considered it. Maybe. Yes, I don't know. It shouldn't, but they stole your reputation along with everything else, and now you get it back. The video deposition happened 3 days later. I sat in a conference room at Thomas's architecture firm, his colleagues graciously providing space and technical support. Detective Chen appeared on screen, kind-faced and thorough. For 2 hours, I relived the worst night of my life in excruciating detail. The detective had me walk through everything, seeing Bradley and Jessica at the hotel, the confrontation before the ceremony, the moment the jewelry was discovered, the aftermath that followed. Can you tell me about the impact on your life following that night? Where to begin? The lost job, the desperate move across the country, discovering I was pregnant while living in a motel, years of rebuilding from nothing, while my family lived their lives without me. They didn't just frame me, I said finally. They erased me. My family chose their lie so completely that I ceased to exist. I gave birth alone, raised my daughter, alone rebuilt my entire life alone because Jessica Palmer decided I was expendable. The financial impact? I lost approximately $45,000 in immediate wages, had to break my apartment lease, lost health insurance while pregnant, couldn't use 5 years of work experience for references. The career impact alone is probably in the hundreds of thousands. But how do you quantify missing your daughter's first word being grandma because she doesn't have one? Detective Chen took notes, asked follow-up questions, built a case with methodical precision. By the end, I was drained, but somehow cleaner, like lancing an infection that had festered too long. One more thing, he said. Your cousin Madison would like to provide a victim impact statement about how Palmer and Morrison's deception affected her marriage and mental health. Would you be comfortable with that? That's her choice. But detective, make sure she tells the truth, that she knew something was wrong and chose to stay silent. I wasn't their only victim, but I was the only one sacrificed. Understood. Ms. Winters, thank you for your courage in coming forward. We'll be in touch as the case progresses. The screen went dark. I sat in the borrowed conference room, staring at my reflection in the black monitor. 6 years older, harder maybe, but unbroken. Sophie's mother, Thomas's partner, my own person finally and completely. That evening my mother called. I almost didn't answer, but something in me had shifted during the deposition. I was tired of running from ghosts. Estelle, thank God. I didn't think you'd pick up. What do you want, Patricia? We got a call from the detective. He said you gave your statement. Thank you. I didn't do it for you. I know, but still, Estelle, I need you to know something. The night we found the video, I threw up, literally ran to the bathroom and was sick when I realized what we'd done to you, what I'd done. Good. I slapped my own daughter, my baby girl, in front of everyone. How do I live with that? The same way I lived without you, one day at a time. We donated the country club membership fees to a fraud victim fund. It doesn't undo anything, but... You're right, it doesn't. Silence stretched between us, years of hurt packed into dead air. Your daughter, she said finally. Sophie. She looks just like you did at that age. That same stubborn chin, those eyes that see everything. Don't. I'm sorry, We had your old room turned into a shrine practically, everything exactly how you left it. Like if we kept it perfect, you might come home. That room belonged to someone who doesn't exist anymore. I know. Estelle, we're seeing a family therapist, all of us, trying to understand how we became people who could do what we did. The therapist says we trauma bonded over the wrong narrative, reinforced each other's assumptions until the lie became more real than the truth. Fascinating. Are we done? Madison's not doing well. The divorce, realizing she helped destroy you for a man who was playing her all along. She's been hospitalized twice for malnutrition, won't eat, can't sleep. The guilt is killing her. I thought about Madison at the coffee shop, skeletal and shaking. My baby cousin, who I'd taught to ride a bike, now wasting away under the weight of her choices. That's not my problem anymore. No, it's not. Nothing is your problem when it comes to us. We made sure of that. Her voice broke. I just thought you should know, in case you ever find room in your heart for forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't mine to give, it's Sophie's. She's the one who grew up without grandparents, without cousins, without Sunday dinners and holiday traditions and family photos on the wall. You want forgiveness? Ask her in 20 years if she can forgive you for stealing her birthright. You're right. God, you're so right. We stole from both of you. Yes, you did. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to help my actual family with homework. I hung up without saying goodbye. Through the kitchen window, I could see Thomas helping the boys with a science project, while Sophie colored at the table tongue, poking out in concentration. My real family, my chosen family, the one that showed up and stayed. The truth was finally out there, spreading through Oakwood like wildfire, I'm sure. Let them gossip, let them judge, let them reconsider every cruel word and turned back from 6 years ago. I had stopped needing their validation the moment Sophie drew her first breath, but knowing they knew, knowing they had to sit with the knowledge of what they'd done. That was a gift I hadn't known I needed. "Everything okay?" Thomas asked when I joined them. "Oh, getting there," I said, kissing the top of Sophie's head. "What are we coloring?" "Oh, family trees for school. I'm making ours really big because we have lots of branches now." I looked at her paper covered in circles and lines connecting all of us, me and Thomas in the middle. The 3 kids below Bernie off to one side labeled coffee. Grandma Maria from the hospital labeled lunch grandma. "What about those people from the coffee shop?" Sophie asked carefully. "Do they go on the tree?" "That's up to you, baby. It's your tree." She considered this seriously, then drew small circles at the very edge of the paper connected by the thinnest line. There. They're on the tree but far away, because that's what happens when you're mean. You have to stay on the outside until you learn to be nice. From the mouths of babes. "That's perfect," I told her. "Absolutely perfect." She beamed and went back to coloring, adding leaves and birds and all the life that makes a family tree more than just names on paper. In the corner, barely visible, she'd drawn a small badge labeled Truth Police with an arrow pointing to the distant circles. Even she knew justice was finally coming for Jessica and Bradley. 6 years late, but as my daughter had decided, some people had to stay on the outside until they learned to be nice. Or, in their case, until they learned that karma might be patient, but she always collected her debts. The news broke on a Wednesday morning. I was reviewing patient charts at the nurse's station when Aisha grabbed my arm eyes wide with something between shock and vindication. "Estelle! Oh my God, Estelle! Look at this!" She thrust her phone at me. The headline from the Oakwood Gazette made my coffee cup freeze halfway to my lips. "Prominent local couple arrested in multi-state fraud ring wedding theft scheme exposed." Below it, photos of Jessica and Bradley in handcuffs being led from what looked like Jessica's apartment, but it was the subheading that made my hands shake. "Local nurse falsely accused 6 years ago family traumatized by elaborate frame job." "Is this—" Aisha peered at me. "Is this about you?" I set down my cup carefully, afraid I'd drop it. "I need a minute." In the bathroom, I locked myself in a stall and read the entire article. Detective Chen had been thorough. The jewelry plant at Madison's wedding was detailed extensively, but it was just the beginning. Jessica and Bradley had run similar schemes in 3 states targeting vulnerable family members at emotional events. Weddings, funerals, anniversary parties, anywhere emotions ran high and suspicion ran low. My phone buzzed incessantly, texts from numbers I didn't recognize. Former colleagues from Oakwood General, extended family who deleted me from their lives, all suddenly desperate to express their shock, their sympathy, their claims that they'd always suspected something wasn't right. I turned it off and went back to work. My patients needed me present, not lost in the vindication I'd thought would feel better than this hollow ache. That evening, Thomas greeted me at the door with a glass of wine and a concerned expression. "It's everywhere," he said simply. "Local news, social media, someone leaked the security footage." "What?" He led me to his laptop, where a grainy but clear video played on loop. There was Jessica smiling at wedding guests while her hand slipped into my purse, the timestamp in the corner damning, the comments below even more so. That poor woman! I was at that wedding. We all believed she was guilty. Her own mother slapped her. Oh my God. Where is she now? Someone should find her and apologize. Turn it off, I whispered. Thomas closed the laptop and pulled me against him. The kids don't know. I kept them off screens today. Good. I don't want Sophie seeing this. Your brother called, David. I didn't answer, but he left a voicemail. Delete it. Without listening? Especially without listening. But the universe wasn't done with its revelations. Madison's interview aired on the 11 o'clock news at night after the kids were asleep. I shouldn't have watched, but Thomas held my hand, and sometimes you need to see the car crash to believe it happened. She looked worse than at the coffee shop. Sitting in what was clearly a therapist's office, Madison faced the camera with hollow eyes and spoke in a monotone that suggested heavy medication. I knew something was wrong that night. When we found the jewelry in Estelle's purse, my first thought wasn't anger. It was confusion, because Estelle had held my hand through every milestone of my life. She was more than my cousin. She was my sister, my protector, my best friend. The interviewer, professional but clearly moved, prompted gently, "But you didn't speak up." "No!" Madison's voice cracked. Bradley was so convincing, and Jessica, my maid of honor, backed him up. They made me doubt my own instincts, made me believe that the woman who'd sung me to sleep during thunderstorms was capable of betraying me out of jealousy. How do you reconcile that now? I don't. I can't. I participated in destroying the best person I've ever known because I was too weak to stand up to my husband, too afraid of losing my perfect wedding, my perfect life. And in the end, I lost everything anyway. Your divorce from Bradley Morrison was finalized last year. After I caught him with Jessica, they weren't even subtle about it by then. Turns out they'd been together since before our engagement. I was just a mark, a way to get close to my family's money and connections. Oh, and Estelle... Madison broke completely, then sobbing in a way that made my chest hurt despite everything. Gone. We threw her away like garbage and she disappeared. She had to start over with nothing because we chose to believe criminals over family. I dream about her sometimes, dream that she forgives me, but I know I don't deserve it. I helped kill the person she was. How do you forgive that? The interview continued, but I couldn't watch anymore. Thomas turned it off and we sat in the dark living room processing. She's right, I said finally. I did die that night. Estelle Winter's beloved daughter and granddaughter and cousin. She's gone. And Estelle Chen emerged stronger, Thomas countered. We'd been using his last name socially to avoid complications. Mother, partner, survivor. Some days I miss her, though. The girl who believed family meant everything. She's still in there, just wiser about who deserves her trust. My phone turned back on. Out of necessity showed 57 missed calls. I scrolled through them in morbid fascination. Cousins who'd unfriended me on Facebook. Aunts who'd whispered about my shameful behavior. Friends who'd chosen Madison's side without question. One voicemail from a number I recognized made me pause. Marcus. Against my better judgment, I listened. Estelle. God, I don't even know if this is still your number. I just saw the news. I'm so sorry. Not just for what they did, but for what I did. For believing Jessica over you. For walking away when you needed me most. I know I have no right to contact you, but I needed you to know that I was wrong. So terribly wrong. I'm married now, have a kid of my own, and I think about how I abandoned you while pregnant. There's no forgiveness for that. I just wanted you to know that I know what I did was unforgivable. I hope you found happiness. Real happiness. You deserve it. I deleted it, but the words lingered. Everyone was sorry now that the truth was undeniable. Where was that sorrow 6 years ago when it might have saved me? The next few days were a circus. Reporters called the hospital asking for statements. My family's public Facebook posts were screenshot and dissected on local news sites. Someone had started a GoFundMe for Estelle Winter's pain and suffering that I immediately had taken down. But it was the call from Grandmother Ruth that finally broke through my defenses. She called on a Thursday evening while I was making dinner. Her number on my phone still labeled Grandma because I'd never been able to change it. "Hello, my little star." Her voice was weaker than I remembered, but that childhood nickname hit like a physical blow. I've been staring at this phone for 3 days trying to find words that don't exist. Then why call? Because I'm dying and I can't leave this world without telling you that I failed you. My precious girl, I failed you in every way a grandmother could fail. Yes, you did. I let pride and appearances matter more than truth. I let them poison me against the granddaughter who used to leave dandelions on my pillow because you thought they were wishes I could use. I gripped the phone tighter, dinner forgotten. Don't do this. I have to. Estelle, I'm leaving you everything. What? The others will get token amounts, but the bulk of my estate is yours. The house, the money, all of it. It doesn't undo anything, but I don't want your money. Then give it to Sophie. Let her have the security I stole from you. Please. Grandma. I dream about her, you know. This granddaughter I've never met. Patricia showed me pictures from that day at the market. She looks just like you, that same determined chin. She's nothing like me. She's better, braver, because you raised her to be. My little star, you became everything I hoped you'd be, and you did it without us, despite us. The strength that took. I'm so proud of you. Stop. I can't. I have 2 months, maybe less. The cancer is aggressive and I'm tired, but I needed you to know that I love you. I've loved you every day of these 6 years, even when I was too stupid and stubborn to show it. Well, love isn't enough. No, it's not, but it's all I have left to offer. That and the truth you were the best of us, Estelle, the very best of the Winters family, and we threw you away for a lie because it was easier than admitting we weren't as perfect as we pretended to be. I was crying now, silent tears that Sophie noticed from the living room. She appeared at my side, small hand patting my arm. You okay, Mommy? I'm fine, baby. Go finish your homework. Is that the sad grandma? I looked at my daughter, so perceptive, so kind, despite never knowing the love I'd grown up surrounded by. Yes. Tell her I said hi, and that it's okay to be sad, but she should try to be happy too, like you taught me. Into the phone I said, Sophie says hello. The sob from the other end was answer enough. I have to go, I said, watching my daughter return to her homework. I need to think about everything. Don't call again. If I decide to talk, I'll reach out. I understand, Estelle. Thank you for answering. Thank you for letting me hear your voice one more time. I hung up and stood in my kitchen, in my life built from ashes, and tried to understand how vindication could hurt this much. They knew now. Everyone knew. The truth was spreading through Oakwood like wildfire, burning down 6 years of lies. But I was 3,000 miles away with a different name and a daughter who called another woman Coffee Grandma because her real grandmothers had chosen comfort over truth. Need help? Thomas appeared, having heard enough to understand. I don't know what I need anymore. Then we'll figure it out together. But right now, Sophie needs dinner. The boys need someone to check their math, and I need you to taste this sauce and tell me if it needs more garlic. Normal life, real life, the life they'd forced me to build alone, but that had somehow become more precious than anything I'd lost. Everything needs more garlic, I said, letting him pull me back to the present. That's my girl. We finished making dinner together, while my phone continued buzzing with the desperate apologies of people who'd waited too long to offer them. Let them stew in their shame. Let them feel a fraction of the isolation they'd forced on me. I had a family to feed, a life to live, and no more room for ghosts who only haunted me when the truth became too bright to ignore. The story went viral on a Tuesday. I was in the middle of a particularly complex cardiac procedure when Dr. Chen pulled me aside, her expression unreadable. "Estelle, we need to talk. Can someone cover for you?" My stomach dropped. Had my past finally caught up to my career here too? Is something wrong? Not wrong exactly, just complicated. In her office, she turned her computer screen toward me, a video titled "The Ultimate Wedding Betrayal: How One Woman Lost Everything to a 6-Year Lie" had 14 million views and counting. The thumbnail showed my face lifted from some old social media post next to Jessica's mugshot. "This is you," Dr. Chen said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me when you applied, when we've worked together all these years?" "Because I needed to be judged on my work, not my past. Because Estelle Winters was nobody's victim here. She was just a nurse. A nurse who rebuilt her entire life from nothing while raising a child alone." She clicked through the video comments. Thousands upon thousands of people expressing outrage on my behalf, calling for justice, sharing their own stories of family betrayal. I didn't want this attention. "I know, but you have it now. Reporters have been calling all morning. Someone leaked that you work here. There's a news van in the parking lot." I sank into a chair. "I'm so sorry. I'll resign if—" "Don't you dare." Her voice was sharp. "You're one of the best nurses I've ever worked with. I'm not losing you to this circus, but we need a plan." The plan involves security escorting me to my car through a back entrance and a formal statement from the hospital supporting their employee and requesting privacy. It worked for about 6 hours. By evening, our apartment building was surrounded. Thomas had to pick up all 3 kids from school after someone showed up asking Sophie's teacher for a statement about the fraud victim's daughter. "Oh, we can't live like this," I said, watching through the blinds as another news van pulled up. "We won't have to. News cycles are short. They'll move on." But they didn't. Someone created a Wikipedia page about the Morrison-Palmer wedding fraud case with an entire section devoted to my tragic aftermath. Internet sleuths dug up photos from my old life, creating before and after comparisons that made me look like a completely different person, which I suppose I was. The worst part was explaining it to Sophie. "Why are all those people outside?" she asked on day 3 of the siege. "Remember how I told you about the people who were mean to Mommy? Well, they got in trouble for it, and now everyone wants to talk about what happened." "But that was a long time ago." "I know, baby, but sometimes old stories become new again." "Do I have to talk to them?" "Never. You don't owe anyone your story." She nodded solemnly, then brightened. "Can I draw them a picture that says, 'Go away, we're eating dinner'?" "That's actually not a bad idea." Sophie's sign, displayed prominently in our window, became a viral sensation of its own. "6-year-old daughter of fraud victim has had enough," read the headline, with a photo of her colorful creation, complete with frowning faces, and what appeared to be reporters being eaten by dinosaurs. The attention intensified everything. My family's attempts to reach me became more desperate as their own lives imploded under public scrutiny. Madison was hospitalized again after someone spray-painted "liar" across her apartment building. David's fire station was fielding calls about why they employed someone who'd abandoned family values. Christopher's school put him on administrative leave pending a review of his moral character. "Good," I told Thomas when he relayed the news. "Let them feel what it's like to be judged and found wanting." "You don't mean that." "Don't I?" But late at night, I scrolled through the videos of my brothers trying to get to their cars through crowds of reporters. David looked haggard. Christopher defeated. Part of me, the part that remembered teaching them to tie their shoes, ached for their pain. The rest of me remembered them escorting me out of Madison's wedding like a criminal. The breaking point came when someone knocked on Bernie's door. She called me furious. Some perfectly coiffed vulture just asked if I could comment on your mental state during pregnancy, as if your medical information is anyone's business. Oh, Bernie, I'm so sorry. Don't apologize. I told her exactly where she could stick her microphone. But honey, this isn't sustainable. You need to control the narrative before it controls you. She was right. Hiding only fed the frenzy. If I wanted my life back, I'd have to face this head on. I'll do one interview, I decided, one on my terms and then nothing else. Thomas found a journalist with a reputation for ethical reporting, someone who'd covered similar stories with his sensitivity. We met at Bernie's coffee shop on a Sunday morning, the one place I felt completely safe. Carmen Rodriguez was younger than I'd expected, with kind eyes and a recorder she set carefully between us. "Thank you for agreeing to this," she said. "I know it can't be easy." Nothing about the last 6 years has been easy, but that's not the story I want to tell. What story do you want to tell? I thought about it sipping Bernie's perfect coffee while Thomas sat beside me, his hand on mine. I want to tell the story of how losing everything gave me everything, how being erased allowed me to rewrite myself, how my daughter grew up without grandparents but surrounded by chosen family who showed up every single day. That's beautiful. Can you elaborate? So I did. For 2 hours, I talked about the nurse who brought me lunches, the coffee shop owner who gave me a chance, the widowed father who showed me love could be trusted again. I talked about Sophie's first words, first steps, first day of school, all witnessed by people who chose to be there rather than obligated by blood. What about forgiveness? Carmen asked gently. Your family is clearly desperate for it. Forgiveness isn't a gift you give to others. It's a gift you give yourself. I've forgiven them for my own peace. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean pretending the past didn't happen. And your daughter will? She know her biological grandparents. That's her choice to make when she's older. Right now, she has coffee grandma and work grandma and all the chosen family who've earned their place in her life. Biology doesn't automatically grant you membership to someone's heart. What would you say to other victims of family betrayal? That your worth isn't determined by who believes you. That sometimes the family you create is stronger than the family you're born into. That surviving isn't just about getting through. It's about becoming who you were meant to be, even if that journey starts with losing everything. Carmen nodded, taking notes. One last question. Jessica Palmer and Bradley Morrison are facing serious jail time. Do you feel vindicated? I feel tired. Vindication sounds triumphant. This just feels like the end of a very long exile. They'll face consequences for their crimes. My family faces consequences for their choices, and I'll continue facing forward, building the life they tried to steal. The interview aired 3 days later. Thomas and I watched it together after the kids were asleep, my head on his shoulder, his arms around me like armor against the world. Carmen had done a beautiful job. The focus wasn't on the scandal, but on the rebuilding. She'd interviewed Bernie, who called me the strongest person I know. Maria from the hospital, who talked about watching me work through exhaustion to provide for Sophie. Even Dr. Chen appeared praising my dedication and skill. But it was Sophie's segment that broke me. Carmen had asked her what made her mom special. She never gives up, Sophie said simply, even when she's sad. She says that flowers grow in cracks in the sidewalk because they're tough, and we're like flowers. We grow anywhere because we're tough too. The interview accomplished what I'd hoped. The story shifted from scandal to survival. The news vans disappeared, the calls slowed, the internet moved on to its next outrage. But in Oakwood, the reckoning continued. Madison wrote an op-ed about the danger of choosing comfortable lies over uncomfortable truths. My parents joined a support group for families torn apart by false accusations. Christopher started a nonprofit focused on restorative justice. David began speaking at high schools about the importance of standing up for truth even when it cost you everything. They were trying to make amends in the only way they could by ensuring no other family repeated their mistakes. I heard about it all through the grapevine, Bernie's network of coffee shop regulars, keeping her informed of hometown news. "They're broken," she told me one afternoon, "completely broken by what they did." They broke themselves. I just survived it. And that honey is the best revenge, living well despite them. She was right. Every day Sophie laughed, every night Thomas held me, every shift I worked saving lives. All of it was proof that they'd failed to destroy me. The spotlight had been brutal, but it had also freed me. No more hiding, no more shame, no more carrying their sins like stones in my chest. I was Estelle Chen now, publicly and proudly. Mother partner, nurse survivor. The woman who'd risen from the ashes of a family's betrayal to build something better, stronger, truer. Let them live with their guilt. I had a life to live, and it was beautiful. The knock came on a rainy Thursday evening 2 weeks after the interview aired. Soft, hesitant, nothing like the aggressive pounding of reporters. I looked through the peephole and felt my breath catch. Madison stood in the hallway, soaked through, looking more ghost than human. Beside her, a visibly pregnant belly stretched beneath a rain-dampened coat. "Please," she said, knowing I was watching. "I know I have no right to be here, but I need to see you, just once. Then I'll leave forever if that's what you want." Every instinct screamed to leave the door closed, but something in her broken posture, the way she cradled her belly protectively, made me turn the locks. 5 minutes, I said, not moving from the doorway. "Thank you." She was crying already, rain and tears indistinguishable. "Thank you for even opening the door." "How did you find me?" "I didn't. I've been in Seattle for a week trying to work up the courage. Your interview. Carmen mentioned Bernie's coffee shop. I've been going there every day hoping." "Stalking me now." No, I needed to tell you in person what I did, what I knew, all of it." I glanced back at the apartment. Thomas had taken the kids to the movies, giving me a rare evening alone. Maybe the universe had planned this. "Come in, you're dripping on my neighbor's welcome mats." She entered like she was walking into a church, reverent and terrified. Her eyes took in everything, the photos on the walls, Sophie's artwork on the fridge, the life I'd built without them. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Your home, it's so warm." "What do you want, Madison? What?" She sank onto my couch, uninvited hands shaking. I knew. The night of the wedding, when they found the jewelry, I knew something was wrong. You had this look on your face, not guilt, but complete shock. The same look you had when I fell off my bike at 7 and you thought I was really hurt. But you said nothing. Bradley had been telling me for weeks that you were acting strange around him. Jessica backed him up, said you'd been making comments about how I was too young to get married, how Bradley wasn't good enough. They painted this picture of jealous cousin who couldn't stand to see me happy. And you believed them. I wanted to. God help me, I wanted to believe it, because the alternative was that my husband and best friend were monsters. It was easier to sacrifice you than admit I'd chosen wrong. Easier, the word tasted bitter. Do you know what you cost me? Everything. You lost everything because I was a coward. She pulled out an envelope, handed it to me with trembling fingers. I wrote it all down, every lie I told myself, every moment I chose Brad over truth, every time I could have spoken up and didn't. "I don't want to read this." "Then burn it." But I needed to write it. My therapist says I have to own every piece of what I did before I can move forward. How nice for you. Therapy and self-discovery while I was giving birth alone. She flinched like I'd slapped her. "I know. Estelle, when I found out you'd been pregnant, that Sophie existed, I wanted to die. Actually die. Because I realized I'd helped erase not just you, but her too. This innocent baby who should have been surrounded by family." She was surrounded by family, just not yours. I know that too. I've met Bernie. She wouldn't tell me anything about you, but she made sure I knew that Sophie had grandmothers who showed up, that you both had everything you needed, no thanks to us. Why are you here, really? Madison placed a hand on her belly, and I noticed how thin her wrists were, how her pregnancy seemed to be the only healthy thing about her. Because I'm terrified. I'm 7 months pregnant, and I wake up every night in cold sweats thinking about karma, thinking that I'm going to lose this baby as punishment for what I did to you and Sophie. That's not how the universe works. Isn't it I betrayed the person who loved me most for a man who was sleeping with my best friend? I let my family destroy you rather than stand up for truth. Now I'm pregnant and alone and scared, and I can't stop thinking that I deserve whatever horrible thing is coming. You want absolution? I can't give you that. I don't want absolution. I want you to know, that I live with it every day, that when my daughter is born, I'm going to tell her about the cousin who should have been in her life, who would have been the best aunt in the world if I hadn't been weak and selfish and wrong. Don't put that on a child. Then what do I do? How do I raise a daughter knowing I destroyed another little girl's family? I studied her, this broken shadow of the vibrant girl I'd helped raise. Part of me wanted to rage, to list every moment of pain her cowardice had caused. But what was the point? She was already destroyed. You raise her to be brave, I said finally, to speak truth even when lies are easier, to choose what's right over what's comfortable. You teach her that family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up. And you never, ever let her think that maintaining peace is worth sacrificing people. Like I sacrificed you. Yes. Madison sobbed, then ugly crying that shook her whole body. I didn't comfort her. That wasn't my job anymore. The baby's father? I asked when her sobs quieted. A mistake. Another man who told pretty lies. I'm doing this alone, she laughed bitterly. Poetic justice, right? I get to experience a fraction of what you went through. It's not the same. You have family support, financial resources, a home that's paid for. I had a studio apartment and Bernie's leftover soup. You had your integrity. I'd trade everything for that. No, you wouldn't. That's why we're here. She nodded, accepting the harsh truth. Can I ask about Sophie? Not details, just, is she happy? She's perfect. Smart, kind, funny. She loves dinosaurs and painting and making up stories about brave princesses who save themselves. She has 2 brothers who adore her and more grandmothers than she can count. She's happy because she's surrounded by people who choose her every single day. That's beautiful. That's what I wanted to hear, that despite everything she's okay. No thanks to you. No thanks to any of us. Madison stood carefully, exhaustion in every movement. I should go. Thomas and the kids will be home soon. How do you know about... Bernie mentioned you had a partner, that he's good to you and Sophie. I'm glad. You deserve someone who recognizes your worth. She moved toward the door, then turned back. Estelle, I know I have no right to ask, but when my daughter is born, could I send you a picture? Just so you know she exists. You don't have to respond or acknowledge it. I need you to know she's real. Why? Because you should have been there. In the delivery room holding my hand, meeting your newest cousin. Because I stole that from both of us, and I need to honor what should have been, even if it's just a photo you delete. Send it to Bernie. She'll decide if I see it. Thank you for opening the door, for letting me say what I needed to say, for becoming the person Sophie needed even when we failed you both. She left, then disappearing into the Seattle rain like the ghost she'd become. I locked the door and stood in my living room processing. 6 years of imagined confrontations, and the reality was so much smaller. Just 2 women on opposite sides of a choice, living with the consequences. When Thomas came home with 3 sugar-high kids, I was sitting on the couch staring at Madison's letter. You okay? He asked, reading my face instantly. Madison was here. What? How? She's been haunting Bernie's shop. She's pregnant and terrified and broken. Good. That's what I thought I'd feel, but mostly I just feel empty, like looking at a stranger wearing my cousin's face. Sophie bounced over, full of movie chatter. Mommy, the princess in the movie saved everyone. She didn't wait for a prince or anything. That's how the best princesses do it, I agreed, pulling her close. Did you have fun with your alone time? I met Thomas's eyes over her head. I had an unexpected visitor, but it's handled. He nodded, understanding. Later, after bedtime stories and toothbrushing and all the beautiful chaos of our evening routine, I showed him Madison's letter. Do you want to read it? He asked. I don't know. What could she possibly say that matters now? Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But that's for you to decide when you're ready. I put the letter in a drawer, neither reading nor destroying it. Like Madison's future baby photos, it would wait until I decided if I wanted that door opened or permanently closed. That night, Sophie crawled into our bed around 2 a.m., mumbling about bad dreams. It's okay, baby, I whispered, making room between Thomas and me. You're safe. I dreamed about the sad lady, she murmured, the one from the coffee shop who cried. What about her? She was lost and couldn't find her way home. It was really dark and scary. But you're not lost. You're right here with us. I know, that's why I'm lucky. I always know where home is. She fell back asleep between us, one small hand clutching mine, the other flung across Thomas's chest. My family, my real family, the one built on truth and choice and showing up every single day. Madison would have her baby alone, haunted by ghosts of her own making. She'd raise her daughter with the weight of what she'd done, trying to be better to do better. Maybe she'd succeed. Maybe her child would grow up brave where Madison had been cowardly. But that wasn't my story anymore. My story was here in this bed with these people who'd chosen me when I had nothing to offer but myself. The letter stayed in the drawer, Madison's confession unread. Some doors once closed were better left that way, and some ghosts were better left to find their own way home in the dark. 3 days after Madison's visit, my mother collapsed. I was finishing my shift when the call came through. Not to my phone, but to the hospital's main line, someone tracking me down through professional channels because I wouldn't answer personal calls. There's a Patricia Winters asking for you, the receptionist said. Says it's a medical emergency. I took the call at the nurse's station, acutely aware of my colleagues trying not to obviously eavesdrop. Estelle. My mother's voice was thin, frightened. I'm at Seattle Presbyterian. I didn't know where else to turn. I think I'm having a heart attack. Call 911. I did. I'm in the ER, but I'm alone and scared and... Please. I know I have no right to ask, but please. Every fiber of my being screamed to hang up, but the nurse in me, the part that couldn't ignore someone in medical distress, won. I'll be there in 20 minutes, as a medical professional only. Seattle Presbyterian was across town. I drove in silence, preparing myself for whatever manipulation this might be. But when I found her in the ER, the terror in her eyes was real. So were the monitors showing irregular cardiac rhythm. Estelle, she breathed, reaching for me. I stepped back. What are your symptoms? Chest pain, shortness of breath. It started at the hotel after Madison came back. Madison's still in Seattle. We all are, your father brothers. We couldn't leave after the interview. Couldn't go home knowing you were here. You've been here for 3 weeks. In a hotel downtown. Waiting. Hoping. Madison said she saw you, that you were kind to her despite everything. We thought maybe... Stop. Focus on your breathing. The doctors will run tests. I stayed while they performed an EKG, drew blood, asked about family history. The irony of advocating for the woman who discarded me wasn't lost. But in a hospital, she was just another scared patient. And I was just another nurse. The tests showed stress-induced cardiomyopathy, broken heart syndrome, literally. Her heart was failing under the weight of emotional trauma. Will I be okay? She asked the doctor. With rest and medication, but you need to address the underlying stress. This condition is often triggered by grief or loss. After he left, she looked at me with eyes I remembered from childhood, the eyes that had watched me take first steps, say first words, grow into the woman she'd eventually slap across the face. "It's you," she said quietly, "losing you. It's literally killing me." "That's not my responsibility." "No, it's mine, all of it." She gestured weakly at the monitors. "Rather fitting, isn't it? I broke your heart and now mine is breaking. If I believed in cosmic justice—" "Mom." The word slipped out unconsciously and we both froze. I hadn't called her that in 6 years. "Say it again," she whispered. "Please, even if you don't mean it. Just once more." "I can't. Patricia, you need to rest. They'll probably keep you overnight for observation." Could you tell them your father and brothers they're in the waiting room? We came as soon as Madison got back." I found them huddled in uncomfortable chairs, my brothers flanking my father like bodyguards against bad news. They shot to their feet when they saw me. "Estelle," my father breathed, "is she—" "Stress cardiomyopathy. She'll be fine with treatment." "Thank God. Thank you for coming. We didn't know who else—" "I came as a nurse, nothing more." David stepped forward, older and grayer than in the photos. "Stell, please. 5 minutes. We've been here for weeks, hoping for a chance to—" "To what? Apologize? Claim you've changed, beg for forgiveness you haven't earned?" "Yes," Christopher said simply, "all of that. And to meet Sophie, to try to be the uncles she deserved from birth." "She has uncles. Thomas's boys adore her." "Thomas, Madison said he seems wonderful." "He is. He's also protective. He knows what you all did." "Good," my father said, surprising me. "You need someone who protects you. God knows we failed at that job." "You didn't fail. You actively chose to hurt me. There's a difference." They absorbed this truth like blows, no defense offered. "Can we at least explain?" David asked. "Not excuse, just explain." "You have until someone comes with an update on Patricia." They talked over each other at first, then found a rhythm. How the lie had taken root, fertilized by Jessica's manipulations and Bradley's smooth deceptions. How each family member had reinforced the other's beliefs until doubt became impossible. How they'd rebuilt their entire family narrative around my absence, papering over the hole I'd left with justifications and righteous anger. "The security footage broke us," Christopher said. "Seeing Jessica plant that jewelry, seeing your face when it was found. We couldn't hide behind the lie anymore." "But you'd already known," I pointed out. "Madison said you had the footage months ago." "We did," my father admitted. "But we were cowards. We thought we could quietly make amends and money, maybe slowly rebuild. Then the story went viral and everyone knew what we'd done. We couldn't hide in our comfortable lie anymore." "So public shame motivated you, not love, not justice. Shame." "Yes," David said brutally. "We're not going to pretty it up. We came here because living in Oakwood became unbearable. Everyone knows us as the family who destroyed their own daughter over costume jewelry. But that shame taught us something." "What?" "That we valued the wrong things. Reputation over truth. Comfort over courage. The appearance of family over actual family." A doctor appeared before I could respond. Patricia would be admitted for overnight observation. I relayed the information mechanically. "Could you—" Christopher hesitated. "Could you check on her as a nurse? We know she's getting good care, but—" "But you want someone she trusts with her—" I finished. "Except she burned that bridge." "Yes." I thought about it. The nurse in me, the one who'd cared for countless difficult patients, made the decision. "I'll check on her. Once. Then you all need to leave Seattle." "Miss Estelle." "That's the deal. I ensure Patricia gets through the night safely, and you go home tomorrow. Don't contact me again unless someone is actually dying." "And Grandmother Ruth," my father asked quietly. "She really is dying, Estelle. Weeks left at most. She needs to meet Sophie before—" "No, Sophie doesn't need a dying great-grandmother's guilt as her only memory of extended family." Then let us introduce them properly. Let Sophie decide if she wants to know us. Please? Like you let me decide my own innocence, like you let me have a voice in my own life. They had no answer for that. I checked on Patricia hourly through the night, adjusting her pillows, monitoring her vitals, being the nurse, if not the daughter. She slept fitfully, occasionally murmuring my name. Once she opened her eyes fully and caught me checking her IV. "You became a wonderful nurse," she said softly, "even after we tried to destroy your career." I became a wonderful everything, not because of you, but despite you. I know. We destroyed the daughter we had and missed the woman you became. I'm so proud of who you are, even though I have no right to that pride. No, you don't. Morning came slowly. My family gathered as Patricia was discharged, looking haggard and defeated. I'd done what I'd promised, ensuring her safety through the night. Now they had to hold up their end. "We're flying home this afternoon," my father confirmed. "But Estelle, please, think about what we said about Sophie meeting Ruth before it's too late." "I'll think about it. That's all I can promise." "That's more than we deserve." They left then, Patricia leaning heavily on David Christopher, carrying their bags. My family broken and humbled, returning to face the consequences of their choices. I drove home exhausted, finding Thomas making breakfast, while the kids chattered about weekend plans. "How was your night shift?" he asked carefully. "Complicated. My mother was in the ER, stress-induced heart problems." "Is she okay?" "She'll live. They're going home today." "Good." Sophie looked up from her cereal. "Was it the sad grandma again?" "Different sad grandma this time." "There are a lot of sad grandmas," she observed. "Maybe they need more hugs." "Maybe they do, baby, but not all sadness can be fixed with hugs." "That's sad too." Later, while the kids played and Thomas worked on house projects, I sat with my thoughts. 3 weeks they'd been in Seattle. 3 weeks of waiting, hoping for a chance they hadn't earned. The dedication was impressive, if ultimately meaningless. My phone buzzed. A message from David. "We're at the airport. Thank you for taking care of Mom. We know we have no right to ask, but please think about Ruth and Sophie. Some connections shouldn't be severed by our failures. We love you. We've always loved you. We just forgot how to show it." I deleted the message, then recovered it, then stared at it until the words blurred. Maybe that was their tragedy, loving me while destroying me. Claiming family while acting like strangers. They'd have to live with that contradiction forever. But I had my own choices to make, about whether Sophie should know her dying great-grandmother, about whether some bridges could be partially rebuilt, even if they'd never hold the same weight. "You okay?" Thomas found me on the couch, phone in hand. "My grandmother is dying, actually dying, weeks left." "I know." "Sophie should probably meet her." Should she? I don't know, maybe, but how do I give them access to Sophie without giving them access to me? You don't. If they want to know Sophie, they deal with your boundaries, your terms, always your terms. He was right. If I decided to let Ruth meet Sophie, it would be under my complete control. One meeting, supervised, on neutral ground, a gift to a dying woman and a curious child, nothing more. "I need Bernie," I decided, "and coffee, lots of coffee." "I'll watch the kids, take your time." Bernie would know. Bernie always knew. And somewhere between here and her coffee shop, I'd figure out if some doors should open just enough to let a sliver of light through before closing forever. The family that had thrown me away was broken, now shattered by their own choices. But maybe, just maybe, from those broken pieces, Sophie could glimpse where she came from before returning to where she belonged. My terms, always my terms. Bernie's coffee shop was empty except for regulars when I arrived. She took one look at my face and poured something stronger than coffee. "Irish breakfast blend," she said, sliding the cup across. "Talk." I told her everything. Madison's visit, my mother's heart episode, the 3 weeks they'd spent waiting in Seattle like penitents at a shrine. And now you're considering letting Sophie meet Ruth. It feels like betrayal, like everything I've built meant nothing. Or, Bernie said carefully, it means everything you built is so strong that you can afford to be generous. There's a difference between forgiveness and reconciliation, honey. You can let Sophie meet her great-grandmother without inviting these people back into your life. But what if Sophie wants more? What if she likes them? Then you deal with that if it happens, but you can't make decisions based on fears of maybe. I need rules, boundaries, control. So make them. You hold all the cards here. I spent the next 3 days drafting what Thomas dubbed the Accord. It read more like a legal document than a family arrangement, but that's what happened when lawyers raised you then broke your faith. The terms were non-negotiable. One meeting only lasting no more than 2 hours. Location of my choosing. Bernie's coffee shop, neutral ground. I would be present the entire time. No photos of Sophie without permission. No gifts exceeding $25 in value. No discussing the past in front of Sophie. No promises of future contact. No guilt manipulation or emotional blackmail. Any violation would result in immediate termination of the visit. They would cover Grandmother Ruth's travel expenses, a donation of $50,000 to Bernie's designated charity for displaced families. That last one's harsh, Thomas noted. They want to throw money at problems. Let it help people like I was. I sent the document through the private investigator, not trusting myself with direct contact. The response came within hours. Complete agreement to all terms. They didn't even negotiate, I told Thomas, suspicious. Maybe they're learning. We scheduled for the following Sunday. I spent the week preparing Sophie, explaining she'd meet some people from Mommy's childhood, including a very old grandmother who wanted to say hello before she went to heaven. Is she sick? Sophie asked. Very sick. Then we should be extra nice. Sick people need kindness. My daughter's pure heart made this both easier and harder. Sunday arrived gray and drizzly, perfect Seattle weather for an imperfect reunion. Bernie closed the shop to regular customers, her own gesture of protection. She stationed herself behind the counter like a guardian angel with coffee beans. Thomas took the boys to the park but stayed on call. One text and I'm there, he promised. Sophie wore her favorite purple dress, again, the one she deemed perfect for important occasions. She clutched a drawing she'd made a rainbow with stick figures underneath labeled "For the Sick Grandma." They arrived precisely on time, my parents looking smaller than I remembered, David and Christopher wearing suits like armor, Madison still hollow but steadier, and in a wheelchair bundled despite the mild weather Grandmother Ruth. She looked ancient, not just old but actively dyeing skin translucent over bird bones. But her eyes, when they landed on Sophie, were brilliantly alive. Hello, Sophie said, marching up to the wheelchair without hesitation. I'm Sophie. Are you the sick grandma? I am, Ruth whispered, and you are more beautiful than I imagined. Thank you. I brought you this. She presented the rainbow drawing solemnly. Rainbows make people happy, and happy is good when you're sick. Ruth's hands shook as she accepted the drawing. It's perfect. Thank you, sweet girl. You're welcome. Do you want to sit at a table? Wheelchairs are hard for talking. They moved to a corner table, Sophie chattering about wheelchair mechanics, while my family tried not to stare at her like she was a miracle, which I suppose she was their lost granddaughter made real. Can I get you something to drink? Bernie appeared professional but watchful. Coffee, my mother said faintly. Black. I want hot chocolate, Sophie announced. With extra marshmallows, please, Coffee Grandma. Coffee Grandma? Ruth asked. That's Bernie, Sophie explained. I have lots of grandmas. Coffee, Grandma, work. Grandma Maria and Thomas's mom who lives in Florida. Now you too, I guess. What should I call you? Whatever you'd like, Ruth said carefully. Sophie studied her with those serious eyes that saw too much. You look like a Ruth. Mommy told me that's your name? Is it okay if I call you Ruth, Grandma? More than okay. The conversation flowed awkwardly at first, my family clearly desperate to know everything about Sophie but constrained by my rules. Sophie, oblivious to the tension, dominated the discussion with stories about school, her brothers, the tooth fairy's recent visit. You lost a tooth? Christopher asked, latching onto safe territory. Two. Sophie displayed the gaps proudly. The tooth fairy brought me $5, but Alex says that's inflation because he only got $1 when he was 6. Smart boy, David murmured. The smartest. Him and James are going to help me build a rocket ship this summer. Mommy says that we can't actually fly it to the moon, but we can pretend. Your mommy was good at pretending too, Ruth said softly. She used to build spaceships out of cardboard boxes. Really? Sophie turned to me. You never told me that? I'd forgotten, I admitted, and I had until that moment. Summers in Ruth's backyard transforming shipping boxes into vessels for adventure. I have pictures, Ruth said hopefully, if you'd like to see them someday. Maybe, Sophie said, then shifted topics with child logic. Do you have medicine for being sick? Some, but mostly I'm just old and tired. My teacher says being tired means you worked hard. Did you work hard? I tried to. I made mistakes too, big ones. Sophie patted her hand with innocent compassion. Everyone makes mistakes. Mommy says the important thing is to say sorry and try to fix it. Did you say sorry? Ruth's eyes filled. I did, but some mistakes are too big to fix. That's sad, but Mommy also says sometimes we just have to live with sad and try to find happy anyway, like how we found Thomas and the boys after my first daddy went away. My family flinched collectively at this casual reference to their abandonment's ripple effects. That's very wise, Ruth managed. Mommy's smart. She saves people's hearts at the hospital. Do you know she's a hero? I believe that. Good. Everyone should know. An hour passed faster than expected. Sophie showed Ruth her favorite book, explained the complex social dynamics of first grade, and somehow got David to help her build a napkin fortress. My family relaxed incrementally, though they carefully avoided my gaze. Sophie, Madison said during a lull, do you like being a big sister? I'm not really their sister yet, Sophie corrected, but Thomas says maybe someday we'll all have the same last name. Then it'll be official. But I love them anyway. Family isn't just about names. No, Madison agreed quietly. It's not. As the 2-hour mark approached, Ruth grew visibly tired. The burst of energy the meeting Sophie had provided was fading. I think Ruth Grandma needs to rest, I said, giving Sophie the 5-minute warning. Okay, but first, Sophie dug in her pocket, producing a small polished rock. This is my lucky rock. I found it at the beach. You can have it for being sick. Ruth clutched the rock like a lifeline. Thank you, precious girl. I'll treasure it. Good. And maybe when you get to heaven, you can send me a sign that you still have it, like a rainbow or a butterfly or something. I'll try my very best. Goodbyes were brief but loaded. My family clearly wanted to linger to stretch these moments indefinitely, but they'd agreed to my terms. Thank you, my father said quietly as they prepared to leave. This meant everything to Ruth, to all of us. It was for Sophie and for Ruth, not for you. We know, but still, thank you. Madison hung back as the others filed out. She's extraordinary, Estelle. You did that. You made her this brilliant, kind, confident child despite everything we took from you. Because of everything you took. I had to be better because she only had me. I know. I'm going to try to be better too, for my daughter. Good. They left then, Ruth turning for one last look at Sophie, who waved cheerfully before returning to her hot chocolate. I sat beside my daughter, emotionally drained, but somehow lighter. They seemed nice, Sophie said thoughtfully. Sad, but nice. They were very sad. Because they did something bad to you. I'd wondered how much she'd picked up. Yes, baby, a long time ago. But you let me meet them anyway. That was kind of you. I wanted you to meet Ruth before she died. I'm glad. She needed to see that you're okay, that we're okay. Now maybe she won't be so sad in heaven. 6 years old and already wiser than the adults who'd imploded our lives. I hugged her tight breathing in her strawberry shampoo and innocence. You know I love you more than all the stars, right? And I love you more than all the dinosaurs that ever lived, even the ones we haven't discovered yet. Bernie approached with cleaning supplies, the shop needing to prepare for afternoon customers. How'd it go? Better than expected. Sophie worked her magic. Kids have a way of showing us what really matters. We helped Bernie clean up Sophie chattering about Ruth Grandma and wondering if heaven had hot chocolate. Normal life resuming around the crater of our carefully controlled reunion. That night, after stories and songs and checking for monsters, I found the drawing Ruth had left behind. Not Sophie's rainbow, but a sketch on a napkin. My face in profile drawn with a shaky but skilled hand. Below it 2 words, I'm sorry. I folded it carefully and placed it in the drawer with Madison's letter. Someday, maybe I'd create a box of artifacts from this strange chapter, evidence that the family who'd thrown me away had finally understood what they'd lost. But not tonight. Tonight, I had lunches to pack and permission slips to sign and a partner to curl up beside. I had a life that needed living, not a past that demanded dwelling. Sophie had given Ruth peace. She'd given them all a glimpse of what could have been if they'd chosen differently 6 years ago. That would have to be enough. My terms had been met, my boundaries held, and somehow in allowing this brief connection, I'd proven something to myself. They couldn't hurt me anymore. I'd grown too strong, built too much, survived too thoroughly. The ghosts could visit, but I controlled when they left. And tomorrow, like every tomorrow for 6 years, I'd wake up and choose the family that chose me back. That was the only forgiveness that mattered, the kind I gave myself every single day. 6 months later, on a perfect June morning that felt like redemption, I married Thomas Chen in Bernie's coffee shop. It wasn't the wedding I'd once planned with Marcus, no country club, no 300 guests, no cousins as bridesmaids. Instead, 30 people who'd shown up for us when showing up mattered crowded into the space that had saved me. Sophie and the boys stood as our wedding party, giggling through the ceremony and pelting us with flower petals Bernie would be finding for weeks. Do you, Estelle Winters, take this man who's proven that love means choosing each other every single day? Bernie officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for this moment. I do, I said, looking at Thomas through tears that were nothing but joy. Do you, Thomas Chen, take this woman who's shown that strength isn't about never falling, but always getting back up? Always, he answered, voice thick with emotion. Then, by the power vested in me by the internet and the state of Washington, I pronounce you a family that was already family, but now has paperwork to prove it. The kids cheered. Maria sobbed into her handkerchief. Dr. Chen Patricia, as she'd insisted I call her, snapped photos while her husband tried to wrangle the twins' enthusiasm. As Thomas kissed me, Sophie tugged on my dress. Are we all Chens now? If you want to be, Thomas said, scooping her up. What do you think? Sophie Ruth Chen, she tested. I like it. It sounds like a superhero name. That's because you are one, I told her, fixing the flower crown sliding off her curls. The reception was Bernie's coffee shop at its finest pastries instead of wedding cake, coffee bar instead of open bar, and Bernie herself holding court like the matriarch she'd become. I'd invited no one from my old life, but their absence felt like presence, like finally exhaling after holding my breath for 7 years. Picture, Dr. Patricia Chen directed, arranging us by the window where Seattle's skyline provided the backdrop. Everyone squeeze in. As we positioned ourselves, my new husband, our 3 kids, the found family who'd rebuilt me, my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, but Sophie grabbed it first. Someone sent a rainbow, she announced, showing me the screen. A message from Madison. Just a photo, a perfect rainbow arcing over Oakwood. No words. Just the sign Sophie had asked Ruth to send from heaven. Ruth had died 2 months after their meeting. Peacefully, my father's letter had said, holding Sophie's lucky rock and looking at the sketch she'd drawn of Sophie's rainbow. She'd changed her will one last time, leaving everything to Sophie in a trust I couldn't touch, her final acknowledgement that forgiveness was Sophie's to give, not mine. Look, Mommy Ruth Grandma kept her promise. I see it, baby. Should I say thank you? I thought about it, then typed a simple response to Madison. Sophie says thank you for the rainbow. The reply came immediately. Thank you for Sophie, for showing us who we could have been. Be happy, Estelle. Be so incredibly happy. I deleted the thread and turned off my phone. Today wasn't about them or what they'd learned too late. Today was about the man making Sophie giggle, the buzz boys plotting some mischief with Bernie, the friends who'd become family when family became strangers. Speech. Someone called out, probably Aisha, who loved forcing introverts into spotlights. Thomas and I looked at each other then, at the expectant faces of people who'd earned their place in our story. 7 years ago, I began finding my voice. I thought I'd lost everything. Family, home, the life I'd planned. I came to Seattle with nothing but a broken heart and a baby on the way. But you weren't alone, Bernie interrupted. Not from the moment you sat in that corner booth looking like the world had ended. No, I agreed. I wasn't, because the family I lost taught me to recognize the family I found. Each of you chose us when choosing was hard. Loved us when we were still learning to love ourselves. Showed up and stayed when staying wasn't convenient. To chosen family. Thomas raised his coffee cup. To second chances, Maria added. To coffee instead of therapy, Bernie quipped, making everyone laugh. To resilience, Dr. Patricia Chen said quietly. To Sophie, the boys shouted because they couldn't be serious for long. To all of us, I finished. To the beautiful, messy, imperfect family we've built from scratch. We toasted with coffee and juice boxes, the kids immediately demanding cake, despite Bernie's excellent pastries. Life moving forward the way it always did, in small moments that added up to everything. Later, as the reception wound down and the boys taught Sophie increasingly elaborate handshakes, Thomas pulled me aside. Any regrets? He asked. About what? Not having them here, your birth family. It's okay if part of you wishes things were different. I considered it, looking around at our celebration, at Bernie lecturing someone about proper coffee brewing, at Maria sneaking the kids extra cookies, at our colleagues who'd become friends, neighbors who'd become family strangers, who'd become essential. I wish they'd made different choices 7 years ago, I said finally, but if they had, I wouldn't have this, wouldn't have you. Maybe things happen exactly as they need to, even when they hurt. Very zen, Mrs. Chen. That's Dr. Nurse Chen to you. He laughed and spun me around there in Bernie's coffee shop with afternoon light streaming through windows that had witnessed my rebuilding. Our kids joined us, turning the dance into a giggling pile of limbs and love. My phone still silenced, received messages I wouldn't see until later. My parents sending well wishes they'd learned about through Oakwood's grapevine. Christopher sharing that he'd started a foundation for falsely accused individuals. David working with the prosecutor on Jessica and Bradley's trial. Madison in therapy and raising her daughter with the courage she'd once lacked. They were trying to be better people, learning from their catastrophic failure, building something from their own ashes just as I'd built from mine, but their journey wasn't my concern anymore. Family photo by the coffee bar, Bernie directed, and nobody better be blinking. We arranged ourselves, the Chens plus Bernie, who'd always been family regardless of blood or law. As the camera timer counted down, Sophie shouted, "Everyone say, second chances." Second chances. We chorused, capturing a moment that was ending and beginning and perfect in its imperfection. That night in our home that had grown to hold 5 heartbeats instead of 2, I tucked Sophie into bed for the last time, as Sophie Winters. Tomorrow, you'll be Sophie Chen officially, I reminded her. How does that feel? Like I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be, she said, wise beyond her years. Is that weird? No, baby, that's exactly right. M- Mommy, do you think Ruth Grandma saw us today through the rainbow? I think anyone who loved you would want to see you happy. Good, because I'm really, really happy. Are you? I thought about the question seriously the way she deserved, about the woman who'd fled Oakwood in disgrace, who'd given birth alone and afraid, who'd rebuilt herself from nothing but determination and Bernie's soup, about the family who'd thrown her away and learned too late what they'd lost, about the life that had risen from those ashes stronger and truer than what came before. Yes, I told my daughter, I'm really, really happy. Even with the sad parts, even with those, because the sad parts led to you and to Thomas and to the boys and to everyone who loves us now. That's a lot of love, more than we could ever need. She smiled, satisfied with the complex math of hearts and choices and families, both lost and found. As I turned off her light, she called out one more time, Mommy, we should send them a picture, the sad people, so they know we're okay. Why would we do that? Because knowing we're happy might help them be less sad, and everybody deserves to be less sad. I stood in her doorway marveling at this child who'd inherited my stubbornness, but not my grudges, who could imagine grace I was still learning to grasp. We'll see, I said. Sleep now, Sophie Chen. Best name ever, she murmured, already drifting off. Later curled against Thomas, while the house settled into sleep around us, I pulled out my phone. One photo from today, all of us laughing at something Alex had said, Bernie gesturing with a coffee pot, pure joy in every face. I sent it to my father's number with 3 words, We're happy now. The response came quickly. That's all we ever wanted. All our love to Sophie Chen. I didn't reply. Some conversations were complete in their simplicity. They knew we'd survive them, knew we'd thrive despite them, knew that Sophie's kindness came from being loved by people who chose her every day, not from their genetic contribution. It was enough, more than enough. Good, Thomas asked, half asleep, but always aware. Perfect, I said, meaning it. 7 years ago, they'd broken Estelle Winters beyond repair, but she'd refused to stay broken. She'd gathered her pieces and rebuilt them into something unrecognizable, a mother, a partner, a survivor, who understood that family wasn't about blood or obligation or tradition. Family was about showing up, staying when staying was hard, choosing each other over comfortable lies, building something real from the ashes of what others had burned. Tomorrow, Sophie Chen would start 2nd grade. The boys would continue their campaign for a dog. Thomas would design buildings that sheltered families like ours, and I would save lives at the hospital while coming home to the life that had saved me. The past would always exist. Madison would raise her daughter with hard-won wisdom. My parents would continue their penance. Ruth's grave would bear flowers from strangers, touched by our story. Jessica and Bradley would serve whatever time the courts deemed fit for their crimes. But none of that was my life anymore. My life was here in this bed, in this house, with these people who'd proved that love wasn't just a word, but a daily choice to show up, stay true, and build something beautiful from whatever pieces you had. The truth had come out just as the title of my story promised. But the real truth wasn't about their lies or my exile or the viral vindication that followed. The real truth was simpler. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what really matters. And what mattered was sleeping down the hall, snoring beside me, and waiting in tomorrow's sunrise. A family built on truth, held together by choice, and stronger than anything DNA could design. I closed my eyes and let their love carry me into dreams, where Sophie grew tall and confident, where the boys became men who knew how to stay, where Thomas and I grew old in Bernie's corner booth, where chosen family meant more than forced connections ever could. In the morning, there would be coffee and chaos and complaints about homework. Normal life in all its beautiful mundanity. But tonight, in the space between what was lost and what was found, I finally understood. They'd meant to destroy me. Instead, they'd freed me to become exactly who I was meant to be. And that was the greatest gift they never meant to give. Thank you for joining me on Estelle and Sophie's journey. Have you ever had to choose between comfortable lies and difficult truths? When has your chosen family shown up in ways your birth family couldn't or wouldn't? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear that. Starting over is possible, that chosen families can heal wounds, birth families create, and that sometimes the best revenge truly is living well. Don't forget to like this video if it touched your heart and subscribe for more stories about resilience, redemption, and the families we build from the ashes of the ones we've lost. Remember, you are stronger than you know, braver than you believe, and worthy of people who choose you every single day. Until next time, keep choosing truth, keep showing up, and keep building your beautiful life on your own terms.